Good Friday morning. I'm sorry. Am I popping? Am I popping here? Am I popping, Jimmy?
No, but I need to turn my headphones up. All right.
Good
See,
Friday
on that
morning.
side, it's on deaf. On this side, it's on, deaf, but you just can't hear.
Death but taxes.
Yeah.
Where it's
are
Friday.
you? Where are you? We want to see you.
It's Friday.
Yeah.
I am here. Oh, I didn't enter the StreamYard yet. This is what
Caleb's here. Beautiful hat. Beautiful hat.
It's me.
Good morning, everybody. It is a Friday morning here in Omaha. We've survived the week. We survived the blizzard or the rain or the sleet or the snow or everything. It is a very nice day.
It is nice.
Out here in Omaha. Hopefully it will continue to get better. It is the end of the week. I am Matt McMaster. I'm joined today by Mr. Caleb Henry, our co-host slash
voice of reason.
Voice of reason. Gary Sharp
Adult
is currently on the road in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, because his and your Omaha Mavericks defeated the Kansas City Kangaroos yesterday by a score of 70-61. It was a great night for the Mavs as the usual suspects came out and contributed. Markelle Sutton, J.J. White both had great games, but in classic Omaha fashion, you had some other role players. And this has kind of been the key of this team this season, the fact that at any given night, it could be one of six guys' days. Yesterday, it was Isaac Anacondes and Jay-Sean Glovers, who both had great performances, not only on the offensive side of the court, but the defensive side. Gary will be here today. He'll join us at 7 a.m. He'll be here the entire 7 o'clock hour. We have a lot to talk about today as we're in March, Caleb. We're in March.
There he is. All right.
I'm here. Not on the right camera because why would
You're
I be
on
the right
a
camera?
camera.
I'm on a
That's
camera.
all that matters.
I mean, first off, like I know a lot has been made about the beds and couches and things that I've been able to buy since having a big
blessed.
boy job. Computer is on the top of the list. We are getting a brand new computer. I don't know.
My computer sucks, so every time you say that, Matt, completely agree.
I don't know if you know this, Caleb, but I forgot my computer at home when I came back from Chicago over the weekend. And
yeah,
so
I get a panicky call on Sunday.
I literally nervousness into my voice because I was just so pissed and mad that I forgot my work bag, which is like the one thing I'm not supposed to forget.
Is that why you blew off steam at that Iowa truck stop?
Yes. Well, no, the Iowa.
Or was that on the way home?
That was on the way there. On the way there, the Iowa.
Was that guy just walking in a circle?
We never talked about that. That's awesome. You ever been in the largest truck stop in the world?
Yeah, I have multiple times. I think both times that I stopped there, it was on trips in college headed to track competitions.
Anyway, I had to use our very dear friend Peter Mann's computer, and while using Peter's computer, I realized that this computer is terrible.
And Peter's is pretty good.
Is awful. And Peter's is awesome. And when you have something new, or when you have something that you're using for the first time, you're experiencing for the first time, you always are able to compare it to what you were doing before.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope is always that, hey, this is better. I hope it's not worse. And that's exactly what's going to happen in March or in April in Lincoln, as now Nebraska Athletic Department has announced that the Husker games will now take over for spring football. That was yesterday's.
Can they get Jeff Probst?
Big old announcement that, hey, instead of football, we are going to completely overcompensate for stripping away what is essentially like an eighth home game and introduce the Husker games. So for people who don't know, yesterday the athletic department announced the Husker games presented by FNBO. It is.
Is it necessary to throw in their sponsor?
It is. It is. That's the name. All
and
right?
when we talk about the Big Ten tournament
presented by TIAA.
Yeah, the TIAA Big Ten tournament.
Hey, you're listening to the Phillips 66 Big 12 Championship.
It is the guys.
On KHK Lawrence.
It is the Emirates NBA in-season tournament NBA Cup. All right, that's what it is.
Presented by
the Four Nations Face-Off. Presented by BMO Harris Bank. Look, we have to.
Question is, how come they haven't sponsored the Super Bowl yet? You know that's coming.
It is the NFL Honors Awards presented by Microsoft. I mean, that is what we use proper names here because we're a proper radio.
It'll
station
always be the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl
on a proper show with Matt McMaster and Caleb Henry. By the way, that's Jimmy Chavez on the 1 and 2.
Brought to you by.
It is a 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. event.
Oh yeah, it's all day.
All
It-
day.
It is all day with events.
It
Whoa.
is a labor of love.
That's
I want
a
to tell you
3 edible
something
day.
right now. I feel bad for any of the student workers in the athletic department.
Yeah,
who
they got to
have
go in
to-
shifts.
And just by the way, any of the operations people in the athletic department, because when they announced this event, you
All
know that there had
day.
to be a collective moan and
Oh.
groan and major eye roll by anyone who has to have a hand in these things, just because this is a lot. These are a lot of things.
What time they
going
got to be there? 5 a.m.?
at least.
Oh, man.
And it depends on what you're working on because there's several different things that are happening throughout the day. Number one, obviously, and I don't even need notes pulled up on front of this because I loved this so much when I saw it yesterday. I dove straight in. I wrote a story. It's at HuskerMax.com.
HuskerMax.com.
Shameless plug.
But
Nothing shameless about it.
yeah,
There's nothing wrong with a shameless plug. I'm all for it.
no shame.
If I had a
Unshameful,
T-shirt, I'd
shameless
wear it.
plug.
Husker Max.
But when you obviously there's no red-white spring game. There's no football. There's no pads. First of all, that had kind of not really gone away, but it hadn't been great the last several years.
Yeah.
Like that's its own conversation. Where did the spring game even become? And then there's everything around it. It's a cheap way to get into the stadium. There's a little bit of tailgating. It's not quite an eighth home game, but like it's close. It's close because you still bring a lot of people to town. I think that's what they're going for here with trying to get a lot of people coming to town. You can still get into Memorial Stadium. It'll look different when you're in there with some 7-on-7. I know there'll be a flag football exhibition. It'll look like the Pro Bowl with some skills challenges stuff with the football team. I think there's going to be some former Huskers. So you've got that. That's earliest in the day. Soccer, Nebraska women's soccer is going to have an exhibition in the middle of the day, I believe against Wyoming. And then after that, at the Devaney Center, there will be a spring game, Nebraska against Kansas.
See, that's awesome.
Both programs
Whoa.
with brand new head coaches.
Yeah. That's fun.
Danny Busboom Kelly v. Matt Ulmer. So and that's the one, like you're building up to that all day at the Devaney Center. That will be sold out. That'll get everyone kind of lined up throughout the day on whatever you're going to. You finish it up at the Devaney Center. Now, there's other stuff going on. My favorite part, the thing that I'm most excited about is
the
is
Husker
seeing-
equipment.
Yeah,
sale.
the
Okay,
Husker
that's all I
sale.
wanted to know about.
The Husker equipment sale.
I nerd out to this.
Now, I believe you're going to have a ticket to one of the other events.
Yes. So it's free admission with a purchase ticket to any Husker Games event.
Worth it.
Yes. Volleyball is the most expensive ticket. And then you've got the football event.
Yeah. So I have the numbers here. So
and then it's free to get into the soccer match.
yeah. So it's 50. If you want to do, you can do an Osborne Legacy Complex tour, which is the brand new
Yep.
big. What was it? The Big Red or Go Big
The
project?
Go Big project.
So if you want to tour that, and by the way, so it's $50 to tour the Go Big project in the new football facility.
Great deal.
I
Two cases of beer.
have not been in the football facility. I have seen pretty intimate and personal tours from people who've just sent me pictures and videos and whatnot. It's absolutely insane. If you have the means and you're a massive Husker fan, I think $50 is worth it.
If you're a
to go
football player, you
around
could
and
go
walk
to
around
Nebraska.
and like,
Well, you understand at that point that it's a donation. Like
Well,
you're
yeah.
getting something cool, but you're donating $50. That's
another
what you're
thi-
doing.
Yeah.
But wait, let's talk about this for a second, because how many times over the last 2 or 3 years, when we're talking about recruiting and we're talking about high school guys, we're talking about transfer portal guys, do we mention, hey, they have the best facilities in the country? Hey, they have this brand new football facility they built for $200 million. This has become like a massive recruiting pitch, not only just from like internally, but it's reached externally to the point where media and fans know that this is something that they have in their back pocket. In my opinion, if you are a massive Husker football fan and you, when talking to your friends or talking to people about recruiting, mention, well, they have some of the best facilities in the country, it would be pretty cool. Once again, $50 ain't nothing. But if you have it, to like walk around and see what you're actually touting about, see what you're actually bragging about, I think that's a super cool experience, something that I may partake in, if I'm going to be quite honest with you, because I would love to see what that place actually looks like, because we are in the profession where we've nonstop talked about it.
I just want to know what everyone's buying from the equipment deal.
Right.
So-
and there's because you've got to.
I'm living vicariously through you
It
guys.
is-
I
yeah.
get it. This
It
is
is a
fun.
clearance and discounted team merchandise from both Nebraska Athletics equipment, including jerseys and helmets, and discounted merchandise from local retailers. Additional surplus marketing, promotional items, and collectibles. Any additional details on inventory will be shared at a later date.
So you'll be able to see the list before you
Nice.
get there.
Hey,
that'll
that's
be
a big
interesting.
plus.
Because I imagine that is going to be the most attended event. And
Good place to get some cold weather gear.
but when they share the inventory at a later date, I wonder how much football will be in there. If there is a ton of football stuff in there, like a seismic ton of football stuff, I'd anticipate a line like probably starting outside of the Hawks Championship Center at like 6 a.m.
Because
I
it
bet there
opens
will
at
be.
9, right?
It opens at 9.
Yeah. So
I would imagine there would be like a Franklin's Barbecue-esque Austin, Texas type line.
Yeah.
you want to
if-
talk the portion of the event where
Probably want to wear a diaper.
you're definitely going to tailgate is getting into
Yeah?
the gear and equipment.
That's a good. I did not think of that. So
Breakfast.
that was going to be my one complaint.
Mhm.
Okay, because if the goal of the spring game is to bring as many people into Lincoln as possible and to make as much money as possible, I think this does that more than any spring game.
Well,
I think this
it also
accomplishes that.
It also is a piece that I feel like has been missing from Nebraska athletics in that I've heard people talk about there used to be kind of the extra equipment sale, the old equipment sale, the old jerseys, those types of things, all of the old gear that used to be a thing every now and then. And I see it with other programs.
Yeah.
Because I was covering them last summer, I saw it with Oregon in particular
Oh,
to
that
where
had
they
to be.
to where they do a thing every single year, and it is a sprint in their football stadium to get to where some of the jerseys and the old pads and helmets and all of these things are. I was just like,
Oh, it smells
That would-
like Joey Harrington.
that would be so great. That would be so great if Nebraska had something like this. And less than a year later, you're going to get that. It is on the grave of the spring game.
Yeah, and there is a part.
So
of
there's
me,
the trade-off.
So there is a part of me that thinks, why, like this could be something that they definitely could do in lieu, like along with the spring game. Like in a perfect world, because I love a spring game. You would have the spring game, and then like later in like when nobody's doing absolutely anything, you could have like a full day type of event like this where you go to different Husker events and you watch different teams play, and there's fun little things. My biggest thing is this. So I think that this will eclipse in terms of the amount of people going to Lincoln. I just think that there are going to be more people interested in like an all day type of activity sort of event. There are,
Or you can somewhat pick and choose.
and it's like
Yeah.
this is like a family friendly event as well. You can go to different events. They're going to have a food truck festival. Like there's going
People
to be
like
a lot
food.
of different things for a lot of people who may not just singularly like or love football to do. My biggest thing though is, and this is just for me, and I know that not everybody who goes to Nebraska spring games is necessarily doing this, but I loved like the tailgating of the spring game and going out and like drinking and going to different bars and like watching
Yeah.
football and
Mhm.
doing all those things and like having that experience. And like, I know at least from the student perspective, the students treated it like it was like an 8th football game, which this will still be very, very cool. I do wonder though what like the setup will be for if there still will be tailgating.
There has to be
I mean,
something.
that's I love tailgating more than anything. So I really hope that this event still, creates an environment where that happens. At the same time, this Husker Athletic Department sale is going to be massive.
Look
and
at Adrian
and
Martinez's
I'm-
garage sale.
And I hope,
That went out so fast.
Yeah.
I hope and I pray that someone in the athletic department is listening to this right now.
Morning, guys.
Because I am telling you right now, this event will be bigger than you think. There will be more people that will be there than you think. I hope you're ready. I
They
hope
know.
you got a lot of merchandise. I hope you have extra. I hope you have surplus. I don't know if this is like 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's
Looking
a
at you, Matt
long
Rule.
event.
Some of your hoodies, man.
That's
Mhm.
oh my God. First off,
Mhm.
I would pay top dollar
Good morning, Matt.
for a Matt Rule short sleeve
Yeah.
zip up quarter zip that he wears with the different color sleeves.
And not
because,
just
because
that.
Matt Rule wore it. I don't give a damn that Matt Rule wore
He's
it.
not sniffing
It's
it.
just
It
because
just looks cool.
those things are sick and they're awesome. And Nebraska football doesn't sell them for whatever reason. And
That's the part.
I would buy it in a heartbeat.
That's
okay?
the part. How
So-
much gear, whether it's the football program or the basketball program, like take your pick of whatever the sport is, and you see them come out to the press conferences, coaches and players, and you go, that is sweet.
I want to buy it.
So
Where?
Volleyball. You see them come out and you're like, that is sweet. And it is never available for purchase anywhere unless one of the student athletes graduates and puts it up for sale.
So
And they
Funny
probably
enough.
will be this stuff at this garage sale. So, based on my experiences with these,
I have a lot of Husker gear. And the Husker gear that I get complimented on the most, or at least that looks the best, is the Husker gear that I've gotten from my friends who work at the athletic department,
Mhm.
who have way too many things and are like, Matt, would you like this? Would you like these pants?
This
would
would
you
look
like
nice on
this
you."
coat? Would you like this hoodie? Would you like these shirts? Like the
Mhm.
difference in quality between what the athletic department gets and what is on sale. And it's not, I don't want this to be made out to be like, oh, the athletic department is hiding the best gear from its fans.
No,
this
no.
is this is
They're
standard
just
practice.
taking care of
They're-
the people in the department.
Exactly. They're taking care of
The
the
point is,
athletes.
it's cool
They
stuff and fans
want them
want
to
it.
wear. Exactly. They want them to wear different things. They want to switch it up. It's all about morale. There's a lot of aspects that go into like the fact that they get different gear than the people out and about. But I'm telling you right now, the gear that I own that is the absolute best is the stuff that has been handed down to me from previous people who worked at that athletic department. It's a 4-hour event.
It's going to be full the whole time.
I'm going to set the over under at 2.5 hours for when it
sold
gets
out.
sold out.
Yeah, it's fair.
I think it's 2.5. I think that's a fair line. I'm going to take the under. Okay. I think it'll be right around that 2-hour, 2:15 mark. It's a great idea. I'm worried. I am legitimately worried for the people involved, for everyone who's going to be there, who's going to be working the event. When I tell you right now, when they release this catalog, now there is a chance they release the catalog and it's absolute dog, you know what. And
But it's
just
Husker
like,
dog, you know what? So they'll buy it.
Yeah, but like, there's a chance that people are like, man, I don't know if I want
Yeah,
all
no,
of
it's cool.
that. But if there's a decent amount of basketball and football stuff and volleyball stuff,
Mhm.
oh Lord.
I don't-
Baseball too. Just because baseball has the best gear, period. End of
Yeah.
story.
I don't think you have to worry.
I want one of those Will Bolt full zip up winter jacket coats.
Those are
I
warm.
love a good baseball, like, hey, it keeps the pitcher warm
Mhm.
between innings. Those are the ones that you need. And
I
or
want-
a short sleeve
hold on.
hoodie,
I
nice
want the
little
coat.
warm up.
I want the coat that Kyle
There we
Perry
go.
kept. I want the coat that Kyle Perry wore in the bullpen, where he would warm up and then sit back down, and then warm up and sit back down.
Yeah,
They
That's
do
what
the
I
show
want.
with one sleeve. Yeah, that'd
No,
be okay.
So there is a big opportunity that, again, all of this is without the spring game. So it's a little bit of yay, a little bit of but
Bittersweet.
there's a chance to have a massive event right away in the morning leading into lunchtime. And then you get into the football stuff and then soccer and then volleyball as your nightcap at 6:30. There is a part of this that you can still have the great family moments that I've heard so many people talk about, especially over the last 12 plus hours, 18 hours since the announcement of the Husker games, but especially since the talk about there being an event and no actual spring game, is that the spring game was such a great way to get families into Memorial Stadium,
Yes.
to introduce it to your kids. And I'm here to say you're still, like, you can still get that. And I think there's going to be more fan engagement activities with this event. It's not going to be the football game where you watch guys thud tackle for a quarter and a half and then play touch football for the last 2 quarters or whatever, and it's set up and it's a practice. Like, you were watching a practice before. I think the football program we'll hear from Matt Rule this next week, should get more out of their spring, knowing that they're leading up to this event instead of the fake game that it was. But you as a family can still get into Memorial Stadium. You can pass that along. You can say, look how cool this cathedral is here in our state.
Yeah.
And then what you can do
and then
from
they're
there,
going to blow it up, and it's never going to look the same ever
everyone
again.
wave goodbye to South Stadium.
Exactly.
But then from there, for free, you can go introduce your kids, your family to Bowlin, or not Bowlin, Hibner.
Bowling, not bowling.
Yeah, for Bowlin is where softball plays. Hibner for soccer, which is a phenomenal facility, and Nebraska soccer has had a decent program. You can go introduce them to that. And if you are sticking around all day and you have the means to get into the Devaney Center that evening, talk about the means to get into
if you have the energy to get into the Devaney Center at that point.
Yeah, right.
Holy Lord.
But that'll be
Jimmy, you barely can stay up for a 2-hour basketball game. Can you imagine?
I can stay up for a 2-hour basketball game as long as it starts before 8 o'clock.
Can you imagine getting there at 6 a.m. for this Husker garage sale and then staying
12 hours later?
12 hours
no,
later,
I look, I can do the getting there early because I work this shift. That's nothing.
There are
That's
very
nothing.
few humans who have the energy to do that. They should honestly.
I would get to lunch and then it's nap time.
With how long this quote unquote event is, you should like have nap pods. You know what? That'd be a great auction. Take a nap in the big red
in some of
football
those
facility.
spots.
They have some
I sense
really
an
big
NFM
nap pods
promotion.
Oh, that'd be incredible. NFM should be there. They should set up a tent and put a bunch of beds out.
Yeah.
No, I'm being dead serious.
Do those purple ones. Apparently, those are fancy.
Could you imagine putting $25 a pop walking into the tent?
And there's going to be
a little nap.
There's going to be a food truck thing, festival,
Look,
and there's a lot going on.
This is the bottom line is this. If you're a football degenerate like me, and you like stuffing your face with hot dogs and sausages and brats and having an excuse to tailgate and get maybe a little bit too bashfully intoxicated at a spring game, this isn't the greatest news for you. If you are someone who is a massive Husker fan with kids and family members and relatives and friends, this is the event for you. And there are more people on the latter than there are in the former, at least from my experiences. Will there still be a little bit of debauchery here and there throughout the entirety of this event? I really, really do hope so, because that's always a good time. At the same time, like, the spring game, I won't mince words here, was terrible. Like, after Matt Rule's, like, through the end of the Scott Frost era, it was awful. It was so bad, and Matt Rule really didn't know what he had in his roster, that they had to play a legitimate spring game 2 seasons ago, or at least in his first season here as the Nebraska football head coach. They wanted to please the fans, but they needed all the scrimmages they could get because they needed to figure out who were the dudes and who weren't the dudes and whatnot. Last year, though, now that you've established the culture, you've established the program, you had a full season under you, you know what you're looking for, right? Mm-hmm. You know what you got. You don't really need to have that. Like, you don't need to have a full spring game like that and hit guys like that. And then, like he said, with the other, look, they lost 2 pretty big pieces in their spring game last year.
Right.
Demetrius Bell, who, 4-star from Tennessee, that was a guy that they legitimately thought was going to be a game changer for them. At least I was told that he was having a really, really good spring, that they were very confident that he was going to have a good season. He goes down with an injury that basically knocks him out the entirety of the football year. Bly Hill was another guy, scouted by Evan Cooper, coming out of a really, really small college, had all the measurables that they wanted, was a dude that was going to start for them at corner. He goes down with an injury. He came back later in the year. He didn't look good. By all accounts, too, when Addison Williams talked at the presser, and you were there as well, he talked about Bly as if he was still recovering from that injury.
Right.
So when you factor in the tampering and transfer portal and then also the injuries that happened and the fact that the product wasn't really that good last year, and there's no reason to think that it'll get better, this is a substitute. I think it'll bring more people to Lincoln, which is kind of the goal of the things. Have they absolutely overloaded the plate with events? Yep. I think that's what they kind of had to do. I think part of them felt bad because the spring game is an event that people do look forward to, and they wanted to stack this to please as many people as possible. We'll see what happens. I really hope it's not just a crap ton of people come for the garage sale and then everybody leaves and then doesn't come back until the volleyball game. Like, I hope
I don't think that'll happen.
Same time, it's an event in the spring that you can look forward to. You have a good time. It's good. They
And
did a good job.
and if
they
you're
did a good job.
And if you're curious why there's no baseball or softball added into that day, they are playing on either coast that weekend, so there's no baseball or softball. I'll have this last note on this. I'm in on this because at least for what I do for my job, I saw what the spring game was, and it was not entertaining. It was fine if you left at halftime. You weren't really missing anything unless you had someone from your small town who was going to get in that second half. And then it was cool to see them in a Husker uniform out on the field, get a tackle, catch a pass, whatever. That part, yes, I absolutely get it. I'm in on this, but whether you're for it or you're really against it, all I'm going to say, and this is, I guess I'll wear a PR hat for the university.
Go ahead.
Let's let the event play out before we really judge that it's the best thing that they could do, sans spring game. Or
no, you're boring. You don't know, Ray. Come on.
No.
This is what we do.
No, I know. I'm in on it, and that's what I'm saying. I'm excited for it. But there's going to be people who are excited for it and are let down that day, and there are going to be people who are absolutely against it, but they're going to show up and love it. So I want to see it play out, and I want to see the reactions then.
Temper expectations. It's kind of what you're saying. I understand.
Yeah. If you're completely against it, but you're still going to show up because you're in the area and you want to come down to whatever, you want to be in Memorial Stadium with your family, and then you get there and you go, "Oh, I love this." That's still a possibility for a lot of people, and it is very vocal on social media how much they hate this.
Sure.
It's vocal in the chat, not liking what's going on.
But you know too, and I'm not singling out anybody in our chat and anything like that, but there are just some fans in general who are just not going to like new things regardless of what it's going to be, and that's just life. Hey, speaking about an event that happens every spring that we really love to enjoy and that we'll continue to talk about, March Madness is right around the corner. Tonight have some pretty important games, not only just from a competitive standpoint with Purdue and Illinois, but then you also have some bid stealer games that will affect Nebraska basketball or could affect Nebraska basketball depending on the results. We'll get into that in the next segment. We'll also talk about tomorrow's incredible SEC slate, Auburn, Alabama, Missouri, Kentucky. We also got a good St. John's Marquette tomorrow in the Big East. We'll have all of that. All your March Madness will be covered at 8 o'clock when our bracketologist, Tim Kruger, comes in at 8 o'clock. And then our very close personal friend, Mike Schaefer, will come in at 9 o'clock. We'll continue our conversation about some Husker football, and then we'll finish off the show at 9:20 with interviews with Matt Verzal. Today's lineup is powered by the Rooferys at John Higgins and Weatherguard. Don't forget to email us at the Equitable Bank inbox. Equitable Bank, we take banking personally. Hey, call-ins 402 I forget the number. 429511620, correct, Jimmy? There you go.
You are.
Look at me. I'm in the driver's seat today.
No, you got it all right. Look at you.
Don't forget to
you
call
are
in.
Omaha Matt now.
Hey, we had a lot of great call-ins yesterday. We had about what was it, Jimmy? 9 callers.
I can't count that high.
We had a lot of people call in. When I'm driving the seat, don't be afraid to call in. Hey, we're gonna have a good show today. Gary Sharp will be here at 7 o'clock. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. Yeah. Well, Friday here on 1620 The Zone, bringing you into the weekend, a great weekend of college basketball. It will be indeed. This is one of my favorite weekends in college basketball because there is everything for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you have your big marquee matchups, right? You have your St. John's taking on Marquette. You have your Duke taking on North Carolina. You have your ranked Kentucky playing Missouri. You have two of the best teams in the country in Auburn and Alabama going against each other on Saturday. You have your classic Michigan versus Michigan State. And oh, hey, by the way, Michigan State is a ranked matchup this year that actually has, some pretty big stakes in terms of Big Ten standings and all that stuff.
By the way, just real quick on Michigan State.
Go ahead.
They have run off, 5 in a row, 4 of them over ranked opponents. Nebraska remember when we were talking about Nebraska beat 4 ranked opponents and it tied a school record over the course of the season? They've done that over their last 5 games, this gauntlet of a schedule, which includes beating Michigan just a couple of weeks ago, and they've wrapped up an outright Big Ten title. It's insane what the Spartans are doing with Izzo right now.
They are the champions of the Big Ten, and I don't think they're going to get a guy on the All Big Ten first team roster this year.
No, they'll get on the second team.
Yeah,
but
they don't. That's the one thing about this Michigan State team, which I think should scare a lot of people when it comes to March. Whereas the depth is ridiculous. I mean, you have Carr and Fiddler and Holloman and Akins. Like, you have 1 through 8, and they're full of athleticism, and they have a lot of shot creation on that team. But at the same time, Tom Izzo is just a damn good coach, and they play damn good defense. They're 25-5 overall. They're on a 6-game win streak. They're 16-3 in the Big Ten right now. I don't know the tiebreakers, but Michigan currently sits at 14-5. They behind them is Maryland at 13-6. Maryland plays Northwestern tomorrow. So if the Terrapins beat Northwestern and Michigan State defeats Michigan on Sunday, Maryland will go into a tie for second. The same thing can be said for Purdue if they win tonight against Illinois. They will also be tied for second. And then Wisconsin plays I saw it on the thing here. Wisconsin, they play tomorrow. They play
Wisconsin is hosting Penn State.
So you could have, if Michigan ends up losing that game to Michigan State on Sunday, you could have a 4-way tie for second place in the Big Ten Conference, which would really shake up the tournament.
Here's the tiebreaker.
Go ahead.
Is if there's only 2 teams, and because I've been looking at the tiebreaker at the bottom of the Big Ten tournament so much.
Incredible.
That says everything.
It's awful. If there's only 2 teams, it's head-to-head.
Yeah.
If there's more than those 2 teams, then it's round robin. Then it gets round robin within that group. So if there's 4 teams, you take all of those 4 teams, and whatever your round robin record, your record against those other 3, that's what you sort them out by. And that's the part where at the bottom of the Big Ten, you brought up that Maryland Northwestern game.
Oh yeah,
Nebraska fans are cheering for Maryland in that. Just so you know, because Nebraska takes on Iowa on Sunday in a winner gets into the Big Ten tournament game. Iowa is out with a loss. Nebraska is in with a win or with a loss plus wins from USC and Minnesota and a Northwestern loss.
All right. Well, there's a lot of math, and smarter people will do it.
It's stupid, but it's there.
Also, before we get to Old Man Doug, who's on the line right now, big key matchups to watch throughout the day, just because of bid Steelers. Drake takes on Southern Illinois.
Salukis.
If you are a Nebraska fan, you want Drake to win that, because if Drake wins the Missouri Valley Conference, there's no bid Steeler. South Dakota takes on North Dakota State. The winner of that game will end up playing Omaha tomorrow, so that's an important one.
It's nice that the Mavs get a day off.
I'm a big fan of that.
It could be tourists in Sioux Falls.
I'm a massive fan of your one seed, and we'll talk about it with Gary Sharp. He's coming up at 7 a.m. But I
love that bracket layout.
It is the way they started on like Wednesday, but you only play like 3 games because it's a smaller conference. It does give there still is you get the 1 seed in the Big Ten. Yes, you only have to play 3 games. At the same time, you got to play 3 games in 3 days. There's nothing easy about that. So Dayton takes on VCU tonight at 6 p.m. Dayton, or you're rooting for VCU. VCU has an at-large bid, and if they win their conference, you don't have to worry about bid Steelers. And then Purdue at Illinois. That's a big 7-4 matchup. I don't know how much movement Illinois or Purdue could have at this point. Maybe Illinois at the best could lock themselves in for sure at a 7 seed and then maybe move themselves up to a 6, depending on what they do in the Big Ten Conference tourney. But that should be an interesting one, especially for brackets, just to see how Illinois is playing.
Yeah, you're looking at seed lines there because Illinois is in.
That and Illinois beating the brakes off of Michigan after looking like they were dead to rights, losing by over 40 to Duke. And so we'll see what happens. They're still a little bit banged up. And then, it should be a really, really good week of college basketball. Tim Kruger will be here at 8 o'clock. We'll break that even more down.
Looking forward to that.
Oh, that'll be great. And now we'll bring in the Creighton aficionado and our favorite man who works at a bank, old man Doug. Doug!
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, 1 seed?
So yesterday, of course, occasionally I have customers meetings. I work every once in a while just to keep them off balance. But I was listening to Nebraska Ball Mike, and then the next caller, I did the podcast. Whenever I see Nebraska Ball Mike, that's always must listen to radio. And
I totally agree.
I thought it was interesting, and then with Andrew and Nebraska Ball Mike really agree.
I know.
And that was interesting. But here's my question. And Caleb, you're pretty well connected from a knowledge standpoint. Nebraska program. You're writing for Husker Max, and I'm a subscriber.
Oh wow,
awesome.
Anyway, everyone keeps talking about that they're not investing in Nebraska basketball, and I'm sorry, I'm just need something tangible to say this is an example,
So
something that can be sourced or whatever.
Sure.
Because I think they look at the fans, look at the crowd, I know facilities probably don't mean as much anymore. And, but is there anything out there to say that Dannon is saying, no, you give your NIL only to the football team?
Yeah. So yesterday, did you listen to the Sipple interview? Because there was a great drop.
No, I didn't.
Steve. We were talking about Nebraska basketball. Steve is.
And he talks about pretzels.
He's a big. Obviously Steven Sipple is more known for football, but Sipple is massive Nebraska basketball.
He hears a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Sipple likes sports,
but like fan, like he admits he's a fan of Nebraska basketball. He said yesterday, Doug, that the NIL budget just straight up was $2.7 to $3 million for Nebraska basketball. So that is, and I'm going to be honest with you, that's kind of the first time I ever heard a flat number of what that investment is. $3 million is not nothing. It's not zero, if that is the number we're going off of. Is it as much as other top programs? No. Could there maybe be more of an investment into it? Potentially. They just have some work to do, and obviously that's kind of the athletic department's choice. But in terms of you're just looking for like tangible numbers, Steven came on the show yesterday and said $3 million. So 2.7, $3 million. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of investing. I mean, football is getting a lot more than football's always going to get a lot more than that, but like a good amount more than that. So.
Well, and I can tell it's not a tangible thing because I'm not going to give the names, but I will give you the dollar amounts that I heard on some transfers.
Sure.
Where Nebraska offered in the range of $300,000-$400,000 for a transfer and got outbid by $600,000 to $700,000. So when you're looking at guys that could have improved Nebraska ball's roster this year, there wasn't that same financial dedication to it. Here's what you will get for something this summer. If it is proved next month with the House settlement, you'll be able to see exactly how much the school is putting rev share towards which sport. So you'll be able to see something substantial then. Right now, because a lot of NIL, you either hear from people like Steve Sipple, who are extremely well connected. Otherwise, that stuff gets to stay behind closed doors, and you don't see like a tax records for it. it's unfortunate where it is. It's so hidden.
Okay, so then if you did the math, and I know you don't want to have me on here forever, but
No, you're good.
if you did the math from the average basketball player to the average football player, because you're not paying that.
No.
I mean, I'm assuming you're not paying anything for Sam Hoiberg, and that's not unfair to Sam, but he probably is going to play, and his dad's getting paid pretty well, so in a way he is getting NIL that way in some respects.
But average basketball player to average football player?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's Jimmy's good at math. Maybe Jimmy can.
Look, we don't.
I have a journalism degree,
here's
Doug.
the
I can't
thing.
get past 2 + 2.
Here's the thing, Doug.
But
we are.
But having said that, I mean, is it because they don't have any money? Because Isaac Trout is an example, and I was told by some of my Grand Island connections that when he decided to go to Virginia, then Mac did a Bo Pelini and basically said good luck or whatever. I'm not sure how much I believe of that, but they're telling me they're talking to his dad or whatever. And then the second time around, did Creighton outbid Nebraska for Isaac Trout, or did Isaac Trout just simply want to go to Creighton because they're a better program?
I see that is kind of for Isaac to discuss and answer, but at the same time, Doug, you kind of know the answer to that. Like, Creighton is a better program than Nebraska basketball, so that's why when it comes down to some of these local recruits, they're able to get them because they're more proven, and that's just kind of how it is. But in terms of money, we're not going to know until we know, and it's going to be a lot of speculation, but there definitely is enough to realize that they're investing a lot of resources into football, and the sentiment isn't shared as the same with basketball, but that's kind of across the country. But they still have, there's still some investments, a little bit more investments at times that could be made by Nebraska basketball. We got to let you go, Doug. We got to get to a break. But
right,
I appreciate your call as always. That's another thing. It's like you hear the stories and you hear the recruits, and you get told it's kind of out there that there are other schools that are outbidding Nebraska for transfer portal targets and NIL money, and that it's maybe not as abundant as you quite would hope for a program that has as much tradition and as much fanfare as Nebraska does. And when we get into discussions about Fred Hoiberg and his job security, which we did so much yesterday, there also is the other aspect of what is the athletic department willing to invest and give to not only Fred, but even another coach if they were to bring them in, which is why this discussion about Fred and all that stuff is always so interesting. But that's something that we'll continue to hit on that throughout the rest of the season. And when Nebraska plays Iowa on Sunday, hey, we got our typical bus driver hopping in the bus seat in a couple of minutes here as Gary Sharp will join the show. It's a victory Friday for Sharpie and the Omaha Mavericks. We'll keep it rolling here on a Friday on 1620 The Zone. Well, good Friday morning to everybody listening to 1620. This is
Staring at me like that.
why? What? I'm not staring at you.
I wondered
like
the same thing. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, creeper.
Who's going to call the match? I'm calling the match.
Nice
Everybody,
tournament gear, by the way, that
look
you have
at you.
on. I know.
Hey,
White out and
I don't know.
everything.
I don't know if people watching on the zone can see
Nice.
this,
Oh, show it off.
but
Show
that
it
says
off.
Summit League champs right there.
Are you going to get that tattooed?
No. Well, I mean, crazier things have happened, Caleb. But it is like I like winning because you get like Adidas comes through with a bunch of gear when you show up at the hotel.
Oh, you got the little like celebrity pack, like when they walk in, all on the bed and everything. Did you take
I've
like a fancy picture?
I've got enough. Yes, I got enough T-shirts and other gear to last me for like 2 weeks now. I don't have to do laundry for a while. It's great. I just want to keep winning.
Hey,
Keep winning,
hopefully-
less laundry.
More
hopefully-
T-shirts, exactly.
Hopefully, Omaha keeps this run going for a couple of years, so you get so much gear that I can get some hand-me-downs from. I would love some Summit League champion, back to back Summit League champion gear. Get the hoodies, get the pants, get everything.
Yeah.
I'd be a walking Omaha billboard if that were to happen.
Well, we just talked about the Husker games and how there's going to be that sale. When's the Gary Sharp garage sale?
Oh my God, a Gary Sharp garage sale would be electric.
I don't know. You know what? Probably not a garage sale. I need to donate some clothes. I'm like a little bit of a hoarder, like with shoes. Like I have so many shoes that I haven't worn like in years, but I don't want to part with them because what happens if that one time I have like a memory and I'm like, I want to wear that pair of sneakers again.
This is what I say at home.
People don't understand, like when you get, when you get older, and it's happened to me too. There's so many shoes for so many different events. You have, your fancy shoes, you have your loafers, you have your fancy loafers, your casual loafers, you got your slides, you got your slippers, you got your shoes, you got your gym shoes that you want to walk around.
Okay, Mr. Chicago, I've got tennis shoes.
Look,
I'm a Nebraska man.
Look, you got.
Thank you for calling them out.
It's not. Look,
I got my Friday loafers on.
It is
the
gym
ones
shoes.
for a
It's
snowy
always been-
day.
I didn't know that gym shoes was only like a Chicago thing until I was like 18, and I found out that no one else calls it gym shoes. So, but I mean, you need pairs for everything. Let me tell you something right now. If you were to do a garage sale, there would be a lot of different gear in that garage sale. There'd be minor league baseball. There'd be some Twin stuff. There'd be some Pittsburgh Penguin stuff. There'd be Nebraska hats, Omaha. I mean, I'm telling you something right now.
Yeah.
That'd be a better garage sale than Nebraska. It would. Oh my God!
Now you're being way too kind. But you brought something up because all of us are hat people. Like, do you buy hats at a garage sale?
This is a great question.
Like when I was a younger kid, my mom always told me, "Do not wear somebody else's hat because you're going to get lice."
Oh yeah. That's still
how I got
still
popped.
what moms are saying. Moms be saying.
That's a great saying. No, but
stay out of the rain. You're gonna catch a cold. Moms be saying.
We all, yeah. Put some socks on. Put some socks on in the house. You're gonna get a cold. Moms be saying.
You stay out of this house until those streetlights come on. Moms be saying.
Hey, the cleaning lady is coming tomorrow. Pick up your room right now. Moms be saying. That's a good one.
I didn't grow up with a cleaning lady.
No,
so.
I grew up with a cleaning lady.
Did you say cleaning lady?
Yeah, I grew up with a cleaning lady, and my family had a lot of cleaning ladies. Hey, so
that is a flex of a flex.
I did grow up with a cleaning lady.
Did they live in the house permanently, or
no?
Like they have a house in the backyard for them?
A casita?
No. They were people who also came off the boat.
We called her Merelda.
Yeah. Lauda comes.
How about they were just housekeepers, regardless of where they came from?
No, I'm saying they're all friends.
Because we all came off the boat.
Yes, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying they're all friends with my family, and so they were like family friends basically, who then also picked up the house. So there you go. That's a little history of Matt McMaster. What? That's the truth. I'm telling the truth.
You doubled down from loafers to cleaning ladies.
Did you have a valet at your house?
No, I did not have a valet.
Did you have a butler?
I did not have a butler. No, I didn't grow up in Winnetka. I grew up in Skokie. There's a difference. Matt Wells in the chat knows what I'm talking about. So anyway, all circling back to this. This is very weird because this is a little bit like the bus rider here becomes the bus driver, leading the topics and everything. It's almost like Sam Cassell became Hakeem Olajuwon, and Hakeem Olajuwon became Sam Cassell. But I'll Cody
Never
Rhodes,
thought
Mr.
that when I
Gary
used to
Sharp.
go to games. Yeah, never once thought, if we could get Hakeem out, we could get David Robinson against Sam Cassell, and we got their ass in 5 games.
There's a lot going on. The NHL trade deadlines today. High school.
No, we're not talking about hockey.
I know.
People don't want to hear about hockey.
Laying the land. I'm laying the land. I'm telling you all the things that are happening. We got college basketball. Your Mavericks are killing it. Nebraska plays on Sunday against Iowa, and basically a must-win game. Creighton takes on Butler tomorrow and senior night, where they're going to celebrate one of the greatest, definitely at least the second greatest Creighton Blue Jay of all time. Hey, Mr. Gary Sharp, what do you want to talk about? What's on your mind? We got you here for an hour. I'll let you lead off here.
You guys, we can talk about none of that stuff that you mentioned or all of that stuff.
All right. Let's talk. I want to talk about this
I just
garage.
gave some power to you.
I want to talk about this garage sale with you. Are you your
The
first
Husker one, not yours.
Not yours. Your first reaction to them not only just being like, hey, we're not going to do a spring game. We're going to end up doing a full 14-hour event, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., or basically 9 p.m. We're going to have everybody come out. We're going to have soccer. We're going to have volleyball. They've basically made this a sports day in Nebraska. Your reaction to it, are you a fan, or you're like, this is great, this is how we get more people to Lincoln and Memorial Stadium? Or are you like, man, it's a little bit too much, I kind of would have just enjoyed
I mean, we knew this was coming. I don't know that that day gets people to drive like 4 or 5 hours to come to Lincoln for the weekend. Yeah. I mean, it could be a heavy Lincoln Omaha, some areas that are a closer drive. I mean, I give them credit because, they got a quite a bit of pushback for, not canceling the spring game, but adjusting the spring game. And so I think it was important because it's a big day for kids and families that they wanted to create a Nebraska sports day. So I give them credit for trying. It is what it is. And at least they're going to do something. But then they bring in all the other sports, which I think is cool. I mean, they get everybody to experience the athletic department, and you got a championship volleyball program, and then they got soccer. But the garage sale is interesting to me because they haven't done this very often, if at all. And they do have like a lot of excess stuff, like gear, especially gear. But I'm curious if it'll be something, if there'll be like a mystery bag. You never know what's in that mystery bag. Could it be a pair of shoulder pads? Could it be shoes? Could it be gloves? Could it be a helmet?
I think I can tell by the size of a bag if it's shoulder pads.
Yeah.
there's a wide range in these.
You can't trick me.
That might be a T-shirt in that 8-foot bag that's actually full of 7 shoulder pads.
No, you're like, all right, clearly that was Ty Robinson's shoulder pads. Clearly that's Brian Buschini's shoulder pads.
That's Tristan Alvanos.
Yeah, that's Alvanos.
Wait a minute. He need them?
Probably doesn't.
I don't know. We'll check with Eckler.
I'm pretty sure Alvano's shoulder pads became John Holt's shoulder pads, if we're being honest. But regardless of all of that, over under 2.5 hours of how long all those items last, and how long, what time do you think the first person stands in line at the Hawks Championship Center?
Well, remember, Adrian Martinez, he had a garage sale a couple years ago here in Omaha, and there were people lined up. Oh, there'll be people lined up like really early because they think there's going to be something special there. And you know what? Let's be honest. There's a lot of fans that want to dress like the coaches. Like there's Matt
literally said that.
Hey, there's inquiries about before the year begins of what Adidas is putting on the coaches so that you as the fan, you're such an old man, can go and buy the gear. And so you dress up as a coach. So you show up in the khaki pants or the black joggers and the Adidas quarter zip. Yeah.
Matching colors. You've seen me wear the outfit before with my black on black Nebraska stuff. I mean, I look like I was Corey Campbell. I looked like I was the strength and conditioning coach on one of these shows before. I absolutely love it.
Wait a minute. The black joggers?
Yeah.
The Adidas quarters? Oh, no. You're literally, that's what I'm wearing today.
It's like one of those. It's like one of those.
Like Frost would always wear unique clothing, and people would be like, hey, where can I get that?
Yes.
I mean, will that be available?
Well,
like Rule has worn some stuff that I don't think you can buy, that maybe it shows up in the garage sale. That people are like, oh man, I want to wear that. Where can I buy that? Hey, Rule, where can I get that hoodie with that lettering? You know,
So-
I always think that the coaches should have like special. You shouldn't be able to buy the same thing the coaches are wearing.
I totally agree.
I disagree. I think
I
the
totally-
university should like money and know that people want to buy it. Why
Caleb,
does the
Caleb,
university
they like money. They just need more of it.
Okay, well, here's a great way. Here's your free sales tip of the day. Sell the thing everyone keeps asking for.
Yeah. So I don't know if you were listening to the 6 o'clock hour, but I literally said I would pay any dollar for a Matt Rule that short sleeve quarter zip he's got on with the different color sleeves.
Got a little
Not
uncomfortable
because
in
Matt
here.
Rule wore it, just because I want that. That's my style. I wear those types of things. I'm a massive. Caleb worked with me for 2 years. I'm wearing them right now. I'm a quarter zip guy. I need as many quarter zips as possible.
There are
I
two
mean-
things you are known for in this
Yeah.
world. It's quarter zips and leaving a half a cup of water wherever you've been.
That's
Oh, thank you, Dylan.
You gotta finish your water.
everybody. Like
You cramp up in
are
the fourth
feeding
quarter.
into this
Hey, what
slop.
do you like? Wait, what do you like?
Everywhere in Lincoln.
Hey, you're the person I would never invite to a wedding. You know why? Because at a open bar, you're going to be the one that drinks 3/4 of the beer in the glass, and you're just going to leave it, and you're on to the next one.
No, not. Hey, you never have to count on me for not finishing a beer. All right, I'll finish the beers. Water here or there. Beers done. All right, Crush.
That's fair.
They are finished. All right. No drop of liquid Miller Lite Gold does not fall into my tongue when I crack open a can. Okay, but at the same time, it's like I like the exclusivity of some of the things that they give. Like, I don't think athletes should be walking around in the gear that you can buy at the bookstore. Like, I think there has to be a little bit of like allure of like, hey, being an athlete, hey, we wear different things and all that type of stuff. All I've been kind of preaching is like, I hope they're ready. Like, I hope they're ready. Like, it's like they think, I don't know if they know how big it's going to be and how many people are really going to be there and how many people are really going to be interested in it. And
Are they going to have any backpacks that say student athlete on them?
Can you imagine? Can you imagine?
Because I will get that.
Can you imagine if there's like a section of like lost recruits where it's like, oh, there's Walter Rouse's, shirts and hoodies, and there's all the things that these guys that we thought were going to get into the program, they didn't end up coming. But here you go. Go ahead and buy it.
What instead of gear, they also add like pieces of memorabilia or like the throne in the recruiting shoots.
Oh yeah.
Like you might be able to buy the throne.
Now
How much would
that
that
would
go
be
for?
they would probably have to put that one up for bid. I think people would get it, but there are going to be the other like souvenir things, like if they had any extra bobbleheads or extra giveaway things. I think some of those are going to be there too.
Did they just paint the Frank Solich 45 numbers for the spring game 2 seasons ago, or were those actual pieces of turf? Because I would buy the piece of turf that says number 45 in honor of Frank Solich. That's
When they go to grass and they cut up the turf, trust me, they'll make money off that. They'll box it up and they'll sell it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and you don't think that they're going to take some seats out of South Stadium and be like, hey,
Well, now I think it's only appropriate that if you're going to remove people from South Stadium for a time being, that they actually get their whatever their seats are, that you carve them up and you give it to them. Don't charge them, but give it to them.
That's interesting.
I like that. That's classy. That would be a classy thing to do.
Who gets the troughs though?
Hey, there.
Jack gets one. Not your Jack, but
Yeah, okay.
yeah, his Jack.
I get a trough. Okay. I want a trough. I want a nice big section. I would probably install the trough into my actual bathroom and make sure that the plumbing is connected.
R.I.P. your cleaning lady.
Now, can I interest you in a floor to shoulder height trough?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you? Yeah, all the way down. I want the type of trough that literally touches your feet. That's what I want. I want the trough that's like all the way down.
I don't like splatter.
Backboard. No, I said you got to have a little bit of that backboard. You need a little bit of a backboard, but not too much. Look, the longer my stream can be, the more I like a trough. I'm funny, man. I'm a funny guy.
You're not going to get a comment from me.
I'm cracking.
I hope you
myself
get
up
your
today.
trough.
You're the kind of guy that's a comedian to the funny bone, and you say a joke and no one reacts, and you go, "I'm funny, man. That was funny. You guys should have laughed."
That's on you guys for not knowing what funny is.
Yeah, and then within 2 minutes, you've walked off stage and you're angry, and this becomes viral.
It becomes a bit. Like, what if I became the comedian with bad jokes? Like, that would be.
Well,
that
there's
would
plenty of them out there. You
There's
would
a
fit
lot.
right in. Hey, somebody will. No, I think they could get a price for the troughs. I wonder if they donate them.
Why would to where? Where would they donate them to?
There's a lot of places. The troughs are not going away. Now the troughs
Museum?
are going away at Memorial Stadium. Well, maybe not. I think they will have. There are some new troughs that aren't as old and disgusting as ones in Memorial Stadium.
That's true.
So the trough is still hanging around. People grew up on the troughs. They've taught their kids how to go to the bathroom in a trough. I mean, all of a sudden they'd have to pivot.
You
Look who
still
you're
have
looking
troughs at the Devaney Center. You still have troughs, and
Yeah.
I'm just talking about around Lincoln. You still
Hey.
have troughs with the Lincoln Stars.
It builds character.
Well, it also
Great
it helps with the the in and out.
Oh.
Just you can get more people in with troughs.
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Now,
Now I will say this though, my daughter is 4 years old, and I took her to a hockey game, and since she has to go to the bath, I'm not walking into the women's bathroom, so I'm holding her.
Be frowned upon.
Baby, close your eyes. Why are there so many people just standing? Yeah, they don't all go into a stall like we do. Okay.
Overflow, honey. It's overflow.
troughs are everywhere except in Baxter Arena when they have about 55 urinals in their main concourse bathroom. Because when they made that stadium, they're like, we ain't doing this trough stuff. We ain't doing it. We're gonna buy all the urinals in the world. I don't know. I feel like a trough would be great for like a local bar in Lincoln or in Omaha. Like that would be the perfect if they were like donating them or like you could buy them. Like those types of like Husker sport establishments would be the best places to be like, hey, you get to pee where you pee in Memorial Stadium.
If you get into the Hawks Center on April 26th, there is a trough leaned up against the wall.
Hey, you got to remember where you got to remember your roots. You got to remember where you started.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
They should
look,
sell. One thing. So I don't know like alternate uniforms because you never like see them like the alternate helmets. I don't know if they have to give those back to Adidas or however that works.
Right, they always disappear.
Yeah, they don't, and you never see them. You don't see anybody wearing any connection to an Adidas special uniform. I wonder if those are hiding around somewhere, or if Adidas takes those back. But like there's some like, where's the old scoreboard that was atop North Stadium? Where did that go before they put in Husker Vision? Like, is that bouncing around somewhere? Is that in a back room somewhere in the athletic department? I was, I guess it was last Friday, Matt, you were gone. So when they moved, especially sports information and a good portion of the athletic department moved from the South Stadium to the North Stadium, they threw away a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Like just because they didn't want to move it. So they got rid of like media guides and programs and like some old awards, or they had to move them. There is a place on campus that has just boxes and boxes of old autographs and photos from back like, in the 60s and the 70s and even part of the 80s, just because they ran out of room. But they threw away a lot of stuff. I remember having this discussion with Mike Babcock, who I think they should build the Nebraska football experience and put it in Memorial Stadium, and it's a year-round museum, and Mike Babcock should be the curator.
Yes.
But him and I were talking, and he was like, how come they didn't call me? How come they didn't say, hey, we're getting rid of all these? He would have went and got them. So there's another thing that I noticed a lot in Lincoln when I was living there. There's a lot of collectors that will either go to estate sales or garage sales looking for that obscure Nebraska football media or that memorabilia.
Yes.
That, when Coca-Cola used to make Coke bottles when Nebraska was winning championships in the 90s. Like those things if they're in mint condition, they can catch a good price online. But there's a lot of stuff that is out there that is just kind of floating around the university. So I don't know if they'll throw that in there, but I imagine it'll be a lot of gear. It'll be cool gear. I would love for them to find in the back closet stuff from like when T.O. was wearing. Like you get the bike shorts.
Yeah.
You get the Apex stuff.
I wonder what the markup is going to be on all this.
That I'm curious about that. You talk about some of the older things I got from my grandparents because they a little less than a year ago they sold their house and had to move into assisted living. It was super sad and depressing, but they went through and they were giving like all the grandkids stuff. I was able to come home with a coffee mug that had the season schedule, and it was from the beginning of the 97 season. So it doesn't even have T.O.'s last championship on there.
Wow.
Just like fun things like that. And you know that there are people with treasure troves of this stuff all over. But if I get in there and they have any of like the alternate helmets, and they've got I love that NU when they wore the white uniforms against Buffalo a couple of years ago. I am all over that.
I just want a quarter zip. I just want an old fashioned,
just a regular something you can go to Sears and get.
That's all I want. I want like a Callahan era, Pelini era, like, you know, a little bit darker type red, Big 12 type quarter zip. That's what I'm looking for.
You want a 2002 uniform, don't you?
I'm a simple man. I walk. I know.
There'll be plenty of those to be had.
Can you imagine how long those would hang around if they sold the 2002 pants? That the 2002 uniform for a whole season uniform is the worst uniform that Nebraska football has ever worn. I.e., it was a bad year that year. But can you imagine the football pants, which had that gigantic red stripe down the side, and the uniform? If they tried to sell those as a combo, how long they would last on a table?
They have been marked down to a nickel.
They're like, we'll pay you to take them away.
Can you imagine if they did the markup on all the gear based on what year it came from? It's like, 95 is high, 02 is low. The Scott Frost stuff you can buy for about $10 each. Like, it's just, you know, just based on the era.
Hey, they should have. That's a great point. They should have tiered pricing.
They should.
If when the gear was around, the team was good, it's higher. If the team was bad and the gear was out there available, it's like cheap.
The less amount of wins, the less it costs. That's what they should do.
So I'm going to get some $2 Bill Callahan glasses.
Exactly. Well, yeah, be a little bit higher.
Last 10 years is going to be great.
Already.
So much.
Hey, what if they had the Bill Callahan table and everything was beige?
It's funny because it's true.
On that note, from garage sales to footballs to troughs. Hey,
one thing that somebody just reminded me that they threw away. So when Nebraska beat Florida, Tommy was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Mm-hmm. Sports Illustrated sent like pallets and pallets of that magazine, like fresh, right off the presses. And it sat in a room for the longest time because they were supposed to give it out at either a celebration or every player was supposed to get one. And it kind of got lost in everything else that they were distributing. So they threw all of that away. This person told me they figure they threw away about 5,000 Sports Illustrateds with Tommy Frazier on the cover after the Fiesta Bowl win.
That is awful.
You do that for $1, that's $5,000. What are we doing here?
That's
like I said, they hate money.
Hey, if you had, so that's kind of like, that won't be at this garage sale, but that's why people go to garage sales in Lincoln and estate sales is because I'm trying to complete the Sports Illustrated Nebraska covers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
in the early time, like the first one I got not too long ago was Jeff Smith on the cover. But some of the earlier ones I can't find. But those are the kind of things, like if you had a garage sale and it was like, oh, we got this special stuff. I mean, that's what I would get in line for.
I'm going to be in line there probably at 7 a.m. because I just need to get my very, very special, very one quarter zip. Hey, it was a weird night.
Shoes?
For sure. They have
there's got to be shoes.
Now are there going to be game shoes?
Probably. It'll
like
be
the old turf shoes.
Like how much actual cleats or like helmets or pads there'll be. But like they should send out a picture of what it's going to look like before you go. Like they should like.
No, I think they're supposed to be sending out like a list
of
ahead of time.
So hey, it was a weird night yesterday in Iowa City at Hawkeye Carver Arena. Could get weirder on Sunday, and then we also got to honor one of the best Creighton basketball players of all time who will be celebrating his final game tomorrow. And then, it's March, so we're just going to talk about college basketball. Hey, don't go anywhere. Listen to Gary and Matt here on 1620 The Zone.
Hey, it's the fastest growing youth basketball program in Omaha. It is AEF, Attitude, Effort, and Focus. It's March Madness, and there's a lot of stuff going on at AEF. They've got their spring and summer tryouts, second grade through 17 under boys and girls, and you can be a part of it because they're looking for athletes that have passion, hustle, a drive to compete, and an opportunity to get in front of college coaches. They're on the recruit look circuit, and you can reach your dreams with AEF Academy. They provide development and exposure. Plus, their coaches are hands-on. They're right with you. Plus, and another thing about their tryouts, as I can see with their teams, their placement is spot on. You're not going to be placed on a team that you shouldn't be playing on, whether you're playing up or playing at your level. They're going to make sure that you're on the right team so that you have an enjoyable spring and summer. For more information, Stop by, check out their great facility. Lots of stuff happening at 99th and Portal Road in Papillion, or online at aefacademy.com. It's got all the information. Plus, as we get towards the end of the school year, clinics and camps are coming up. The website to go to for all the information is aefacademy.com. Attitude, effort, focus, developing great athletes and even better humans.
Keeping it rolling here on a Friday, heading you into a very good weekend of college basketball. A pretty good weekend in sports in general. NHL trade deadline today. We'll see where Kyle Palmieri and Brad Marchand
No
go.
one wants to talk about the NHL trade deadline.
The NBA had a pretty good night yesterday as the New York Knicks and the Lakers had a great game with overtime. LeBron almost had a triple-double again. I wonder if the $20 million man will debate about him and Michael Jordan on First Take today with Kai Cenat as they absolutely trash a really good journalistic ESPN program and Around the Horn, and to pay for him. You know my sentiment there. And
Wow.
I mean,
Everybody can make $100 million.
well, Tony Reale has actually been doing incredible journalism for the last about 20-ish years with Around the Horn. And
So how do you end up
everything
at
they've been doing.
ESPN?
But yeah, they got to trash him so we can bring on celebrities to scream at each other about a debate that just doesn't matter anymore. But
I like Around the Horn, but I'm more of a PTI guy. I think PTI is probably the next one because Kornheiser and Wilbon probably are not too far away from retiring. And I don't think you try and replicate that with two other people.
no. And
No, you don't. But also, I stopped watching as soon as Wilbon was so mad at Nebraska wanting to play football.
Yeah, he is as he's gotten older, he's become more of a curmudgeon. I think he's got more exposure. He's become more of a curmudgeon. And I'm with you, Caleb. I like it because it's different, and it was the OG of those kind of shows, along with Cold Pizza. If you know, you know, back in the day of ESPN. So I still watch. I probably watch the whole show probably 3 times a week. But I mean, it's Kornheiser is in his attic after COVID and all that stuff. But it's still a unique show that a lot of people try and copy. But I think that's probably next. But yeah, it's sad about Around the Horn. Hey, can I mention one thing? I don't know if you guys talked about this in the first hour.
Yeah.
Can we recognize that last night? And kudos to the Nebraska women. I mean, back-to-back victories in the Big Ten tournament. Is that last night Matt Coatney and Jeff Greisch worked their 800th women's basketball game together?
Yeah.
How about that? And so my connection. So I've known Greisch forever, being in sports information. People go to work in that department and never leave at Nebraska. From Keith the Seamus to Jeff to Vicky, and now even Nate on the volleyball side. But so. Back in the mid 90s, when I started getting involved doing Nebraska sports, it was like anybody that wanted to do women's basketball could do women's basketball. Angela Beck was the head coach at the time. And so Jim Rose was doing games. I was doing games. And we kind of decided that we needed somebody full time. And Matt Coatney's name was mentioned to us. And this is like in the late 90s. And, Paul Sandiford had just come in. So, they were paying more attention to Nebraska women's basketball. Yeah. And they were telling us about Matt Coatney, who was the voice of the Bears at then Southwest Missouri State. And they were rolling. They had Cheryl Burnett. They had Jackie Stiles. And they said, you got to meet this guy because he loves women's basketball. He's really great on the air. He's funny. He's excited. He has a super passion for women's basketball. The first time we met Coatney, I was like, oh, my God, this is straight out of Southwest Missouri. Like, he had the accent, and he was kind of quirky, but he loved women's basketball. And he was rattling off all these different things. And he goes, oh, Paul Sandiford. So, long story short, they hired Matt to be the voice of Nebraska women's basketball. And it's one of the best decisions, because it was the Pinnacle Sports Network at the time, they ever made, is to bring Matt from Springfield, Missouri to Lincoln, Nebraska, and his wonderful family. The only thing I have against Matt is he's a Cardinal fan, but he's got a great family that I've gotten to know. His son leads the band out at Bennington, Ben Coatney. But Coatney, like the first time Jim and I looked at each other because we had lunch with him, and ironically at the Cracker Barrel, and we were like, oh my God, what is this guy? And it turned out to be one of the best decisions that network ever made to hire Matt. But that's incredible that Matt and Jeff have done 800 women's basketball games together. And they are both, so they are huge fans. They tell it like it is. I mean, it's an enjoyable broadcast. Matt's got his catchphrases, and they're great people. So kudos to them. And I hope, they got to celebrate with a victory, and I hope they get to celebrate even more.
I was lucky enough to be around those guys a lot because I was assigned to a lot of Nebraska women's basketball games. I mean, Caleb.
Who assigned you to those?
Well, no, I mean, announcing as well. Both as writer and announcer. I think in my last year, I was at about like 13, 14 Nebraska women's, home basketball games in some sort of capacity. And, you said it best with the 800 games and just being great announcers and it being a good broadcast. But I cannot let people not know how great of a human both those guys are. I mean, they are absolutely down to earth. They don't know a stranger. They'll talk to you about anything at any time. They love basketball. Jeff has done incredible work there at that athletic department, not only just being there with, upper management and whatnot, but working with students as well and helping them grow through the SID program. So those two guys could not get better. And yesterday, it was one hell of a game. I mean, it felt like one of those games between Illinois and Nebraska women's basketball where Illinois kind of had them at arm's reach the entire time, and you were just kind of waiting for that big run or that dagger from the Illini, and Nebraska just hung around like it was rounders, and Petrie hit a massive shot with 1:44 to go in the fourth quarter, and then they got it done. And Britt Prince, I'll tell you something right now. We know she's around and we know she's great. She's going to be a superstar. I mean, she's going to be an absolute superstar, not only just in Nebraska in general, but in college basketball. I mean, she has it. She couldn't trade it. She couldn't sell it if she wanted to. She's got it.
Well, underclassmen played extremely well yesterday. You had Alexis Markowski not get to double figures, but obviously she's a tremendous leader for this team. Petra Bojan, one off of her career high in the kind of the heir apparent at that big spot. And how's this? In the Big Ten tournament, 10 seeds against the 7 were 5-25 all time going into yesterday. Wow. Nebraska is also just the 5th ever double-digit seed in the Big Ten tournament to win multiple games. Wow. So they are on a roll right now after making they were in the Big Ten championship last year. They're already in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. Now they're doing enough to just like completely move themselves off of wherever that bubble is, and they're playing. It's all seeding right now.
They're past the last four guys at this point, but they'll have to run into a buzzsaw tonight when they take on UCLA.
Oh, UCLA's tough.
At 5:30.
UCLA was big inside.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a tough game. But hey, anything can happen. It's basketball. There's a reason we play the games. Another reason why we play the games is to see some really awkward moments, and in particular the press conferences. And that's exactly kind of what happened yesterday in Iowa City after the Michigan State Spartans rattled off 61 points in the second half. Did you catch the press conference by either of you by any chance?
I saw a little bit of it this morning.
It was one of the more awkward 5-minute pressers that I've seen. Almost every single question involved Tom Izzo to Fran McCaffrey. I mean, like there were like back-to-back questions of like, Tom said this. How do you feel about that? And I feel like no reporter wanted to ask the incredibly intimidating question of, hey, Fran, if this is your last game at home, what does that mean to you? What does this program mean to you? That question was not asked at all. Fran McCaffrey was absolutely fiery after another tough loss for Iowa, who've now lost 3 in a row, 5 of their last 6. And we very well and more than likely at this point could be having the culmination of a very long career in Iowa for Fran McCaffrey and here in Lincoln on Sunday at a enjoyable 11:30 a.m. tip. I'm a massive morning tip fan, but it got a little weird yesterday in Iowa City. It was that was a little something.
It's been weird over there for a while. I mean, he hasn't. Yeah. Another year where you're not going to make the NCAA tournament. People aren't going to the games. You have an athletic director that did not hire you, and she inherited an athletic department where you've got this longtime men's basketball coach who, you got a longtime men's basketball coach that wins but doesn't get to the second weekend. You got a football coach who they roll out of bed and they're going to win probably 9 games, but is there another step for them? You also got 2 coaches in your prominent sports that also do a ton of stuff away from the basketball court and the football field, but they're getting up there in age. And, people are grumbling. People aren't going to the games. Now, football is different, but men's basketball, they're going to have to – men's basketball at Iowa is in a really much of a crossroads because I don't think Fran's going to last through the year, and that would be the wise move. I think he'll retire. I don't see him coaching anymore. But they have to do something with their arena. The way that arena is set up is not – unless you're winning at a high level and people just go because they want to be around winners, fans sit a long way away from the floor. It's just a weird setup that they're going to have to make decisions on what they do with game day there. Because I don't know if either one of you guys have been there. It's not a great game day atmosphere.
Yeah.
And they've had some good teams, and it still isn't a great game day atmosphere. So this is kind of the time to hit reset on their basketball program. But you have to, you're going to have to hire somebody at a place like Iowa, unlike Nebraska, where, Caleb could be coaching Nebraska and people are still going to go to PBA. Iowa's got to hire somebody, not to win the press conference, to win on the floor, but somebody where a general fan would say, yeah, you know what, on a Wednesday night in the middle of the winter, I'll drive for 2 hours from Des Moines to Iowa City to see Michigan State play because I like the coach. I like the vibe of the program. People aren't doing that anymore. I always use Omaha as an example for Nebraska basketball. When Nebraska basketball was rolling, there were a majority of the season ticket holders were from Omaha that, you know what, you get off work at 5, you got to sprint home, get the kids, 5:30, you're leaving Omaha, you get to Lincoln, 6:30, you're walking in almost right at tip. But Nebraska basketball means something that you're going to do that. Now is the Omaha fan driving to Lincoln to watch Nebraska play at 8:00 on a Wednesday night because they have to be there. It's kind of like Iowa City from Des Moines. So I don't know. It'll be interesting what they do, but this will be the first big test of the athletic director, Beth Getz, over at Iowa, what she does. And you know what, guys? Because I have said this, I think Kirk has one more year. I think he'll get to where he gets the Big Ten record for wins, and then this will be it. What is their transition going to be like in football? But I wonder if we'll get an insight on what they do with men's basketball and kind of thinking, okay, this is probably what they'll do with football in terms of the type of hire. I still think with football, they should promote from within, and LeVar Woods should be the next head coach. But the names are starting to float out there. Ben McCollum to Darren DeVries to Chris Jans, all of them are all over the board on who's up for Iowa.
I can tell you I would punch more whiteboards if I was coaching Nebraska men's basketball. It's an interesting – you talk about like the potential renovations for Carver Hawkeye. It's questionable because it's not necessarily a program that has seen a lot of success, but also right here we're looking at what's going to happen at Memorial Stadium, where it's a program that hasn't seen a lot of success in quite a while, but there's going to be a massive renovation on the stadium. For Iowa, they obviously – you get to winter and – their women's team, although it was a little bit of a step back this year without Caitlin Clark and the first year with a new head coach, they're not taking the men's basketball program seriously. Like you said, football is going to get taken mostly seriously. The wrestling program is going to be it that they're all going to latch onto in the winter. Do they care enough about men's basketball to say we need to do something with this arena?
And that's going to be a question, I think, that a lot of programs are going to have to ask themselves when they have a third program they have to care about, right? Like you have Nebraska, who it's not just football and basketball. They have volleyball that they have to think about investing in because it's something that makes them money. When you look at Minnesota, they have a hockey team that they have to think about putting money into in order to keep it afloat. When you look at Iowa, Iowa Hawkeye, they have women's basketball that still means certain things to them. And so it's when you get to the revenue sharing.
Yeah, where are they all going to put their rev share?
Where are they all going to put their rev share? It's,
a little bit. That also, it can fill in if you have a strong NIL. Volleyball definitely, the people that are inside the volleyball program deserve to get paid, but their NIL for volleyball is strong enough that they're not going to really take anything off the revenue sharing. So you're kind of lucky there. I think another thing, looking at Iowa and kind of Nebraska men's basketball, because it's already sold out for Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A lot of places, after they've watched the end of the season, are like, I'm good. I'll watch from afar. Hey, I'll be back next year. But the Nebraska basketball fan, which is almost loyal to a fault, but God bless them, because there are very few places like that around the country, are going to be packed in there. It's moving forward because we're all getting squeezed. My tickets are going up. My donation is going up. My location is going to move. It's getting difficult to get in and out of the stadium and those kind of things. How much power will the fan have when it comes to, hey, you got to do this, this, and this to improve the program and the product on the floor? Will the fan's voice get louder or will it get softer in this new day and age of revenue sharing and money and going NFL light on the college football side? It'll be fascinating over the next 5 years because, people are angry, but they still come. They're like, I hate that we got UCLA and USC and we've lost that geographical connection, that regionalization, but yet they still come. At some point, the bubble bursts and, are people prepared for it? And what kind of a voice do we have as fans?
And that's the part where, as long as Pinnacle Bank Arena is being filled up for a team that's on a 4-game losing streak, lost 5 of the last 6, and needs to win on Sunday or have weird things happen to just make the Big Ten tournament, as long as they're showing up, the fans can be as loud as they want, but it's muted to the athletic department.
Well, another thing, too, before we get out of here that you got to think about is, right, there's a difference between, or at least there used to be a difference between rooting for a professional team and rooting for a college team in terms of how you felt. Now that colleges are
Yeah,
playing
that line is
players,
blurred. You're right.
Oh, yeah.
it is blurred. Like, now the colleges are paying players, you're kind of going to start rooting for your college team like you would a pro team, which is going to be a little bit different for everyone to get used to. Hey, another top college team that is going to be in action this weekend is Creighton. They're honoring one of their best players of all time. We'll kind of get into that a little bit before Tim Kruger comes on, our bracketologist, breaks down what we're looking at just 1 week away from Selection Sunday. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary Matt here on 1620 The Zone.
Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? I do. You can with Underdog. I did a little bit last night. To play, you can choose whether a player go higher or lower, what other stats like points, assists, rebounds, and more, and you can play with as little as $1. And if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 just with your hoops knowledge or any sports knowledge in general. This weekend on Underdog, I'm all about some college basketball because college basketball has been good to me this week, and I think it's going to continue. Hey, like I said, perks of working at the Zone. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using the promo code ZONE to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on all the fun when you sign up with promo code ZONE. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org.
Hey, it's the best time of the year. It is March, and we are right around the corner, just, I think, 9 days away from Selection Sunday. And we are in a pretty awesome position as red, blue, and black Nebraska are all in contention to make the NCAA tournament. Omaha just 2 wins away from making their first ever NCAA tournament. They will play the winner of North Dakota State versus South Dakota tonight. The winner of that will then play on Saturday against Omaha. Red, Nebraska, Lincoln. They have to win. They gotta do a little bit of work. They play Iowa on Sunday, and then they'll have to rattle off at least 2 wins in the Big Ten Conference tournament to lock themselves in. And we'll figure out what the line is for them to do that when we bring in Tim Kruger from Bracketville to talk all about his mock bracket that he made. But yeah.
Hey, by the way, I believe Kelly Pfeiffer is working the game.
Tomorrow for Omaha.
No. In Lincoln on Sunday.
Oh, what a send-off. What an incredible way to end the year. Potentially Friends' last ever Big Ten regular season game from refereed by Kelly Pfeiffer. And
nobody on either team is happy with that.
No, nobody in the stadium is happy. How many boos? You think it'll be like LeBron when he returned to Akron or returned to Cleveland for the first time? When Kelly walks into PBA?
I mean, I hope I tried to get it confirmed yesterday, and no, people would beat around the bush. I mean, come on, after Wednesday night and the reporter's last 2-minute report on the calls in that game, I would hope for everybody's sake that he is not assigned to that game. But he does have a tendency to work a lot of Iowa, Nebraska games in Lincoln.
I think he likes the heat. I think Kelly likes it. I think Kelly is obsessed with the fact that people don't think he's a good referee and the booze and everything. But
But here's a problem, and this is not new. There's just too many games and not enough officials.
Yeah.
Oh,
straight. I mean, there are so many games across high major conferences to mid major to low major. There just are not enough good officials to go around.
Well,
and he's from like South Dakota, right?
Yeah, he lives. I believe he is just outside of Mitchell.
Yeah, so that's the way that the officiating works. If you're close and there's a lot of just to come down to Lincoln to do a Nebraska-Iowa game, I guess I get it. It stinks because of the number of officials that are available and because of you're so used to this official here.
Hey,
well, there's a talk in the Summit League because the Summit League gets okay officiating. It depends on the day of the week, but there are more conferences that are thinking about going to Friday and Sunday because there are less games and you have a better chance to get better officials. And for example, like with Omaha, let's say Omaha's playing on a Friday night, a guy could come, or a gal, Crystal Hogan, by the way, is a really good female official. Watch her. Is they can come and work in Omaha on a Friday night. And let's say Nebraska's home on Saturday or Sunday. They could stay and they could get 2 games in 2 days or 2 games in 3 days. So I think you'll see more mid-major leagues maybe look at scheduling off of the busy times for the Power 5, just so they have a better chance to get better officials.
You talked about it after the Nebraska-Ohio State game that you just thought the officials had looked tired, right? And I'll say I think that was a great analysis just because for the first time in a little bit, like especially down the stretch of the season, you will watch a game on a Tuesday and you'll see an official, and then the next day they're refereeing another game. Like there's a lot of familiar faces in refereeing, and that could be a good thing, and it's also a bad thing too. But hey,
well, I know I think that's a fair discussion across the board. Is there's the physical part. They're independent contractors on the basketball side for the most part, and so they can kind of set their schedule. And the better officials, everybody wants them, and they do work in excess of games, but they're paid really well, and that's what they love to do. But there comes a point where physically, and I watched a game in the Summit League 2 nights ago. There's a couple of officials, and they're not alone, that just physically they can't keep up with the game, and so they're trailing the play. And so their calls are off. It's just it's a tough job to begin with. But then there's the physical element of running up and down the floor for 40 minutes, on 3 or 4 nights a week. It's not the officiating is not built for the older official.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we need more of a push and be able to promote younger officials at the high school level, at the college level, at the pro level, because our older officials who have a tendency to be some of the best officials, they're on the back nine.
Oh, Absolutely. It's not like they're just standing around for 40 minutes. I mean, it's a physical activity running up down that court. Very few jobs that are harder. One that might be harder is making a bracket. We're going to bring in someone coming up at the 8 o'clock hour that loves to do it, Tim Kruger of Bracketville. Don't go anywhere. We are listening to Gary Met on 1620 The Zone. There's beautiful weather outside here, and it's actually kind of gloomy, but it definitely could be worse from what we could have had or what we did have earlier in the week with this absolutely out of nowhere blizzard. But if you smell it, it's in the air. We're right around the corner of the NCAA tournament, just 9 days away from Selection Sunday, and we bring in our very own incredible bracketologist, Mr. Tim Kruger. Tim, how are you doing, my man?
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
It was a long night last night in our mock selection committee, but we're doing well, and we're right on schedule and doing fine. We're ready for another big session tonight.
You have been busy. You have a full mock bracket that you guys just made. Before we get into the nitty gritty of it and where you're looking, at certain teams and their resumes and certain matchups and whatnot, I got to ask you first, because this doesn't happen a whole lot. Red, black, and blue Nebraska all in contention to make the NCAA tournament. Omaha's got to win 2 games in the Summit to do it. Creighton is basically locked. It's a matter of where they're seated, and Nebraska might have some work to do. Where do you have those 3 teams? And, just what is the outlook for all 3 of them heading into their, Omaha already in it, but Creighton and Nebraska about to head into their conference tourneys?
Yeah, let's start with Omaha.
Yeah.
Big move. Just let me explain. So part of we do this mock selection. We do it in like 24 hours over 4 days, where the committee spends probably 60 plus hours. So we have to take a little shortcut. So we have a little subcommittee that kind of puts together the mid-major AQs, da-da-da-da-da. And after a lot of discussion, and I kind of agreed, and I was on the cusp of doing it, on my bracket this morning that came out of Bracketville, I moved Omaha to number 15 in the 15 line. So they moved up. They're out of the 16. They're into the 15. So they're in.
That's awesome. I mean, that's something. That's a big move there. I mean, especially against these 1 seeds too.
Right. And, the other thing too is we talked about earlier is there's always upsets in these tournaments. So eventually, if Omaha does get in, they're going to move up. They're not going to go down. They're going to move up because these teams with 300 nets all upset and win these tournaments.
Sure,
so they're going to be the 68, 67s. At any rate, so Omaha's 15. And then I still have Nebraska as the last team in.
Wow. Okay, Tim. You're speaking our language.
Their resume is it's just better than the most. And so, and look, I know people think the committee sets up matchups. I know they think we do. We do not. I don't know it until the bracket's done. A lot of times I won't even realize until somebody points it out.
Mm-hmm.
But we got the old football rivalry, Nebraska and Oklahoma.
Wow.
So.
I was going to ask you about this. I was going to ask for a little bit later, but I mean, we're on it now. So I was looking at the bubble team resumes, right? And when you look at them, Nebraska is pretty impressive in terms of their quad 1 wins. I think they still have 5 right now. And then overall, their quad 1 and quad 2 record are very comparable to people that are, teams that are even on the 9 line. Their 2 quad 3 losses. Is that how big of a mover has that been for them being the last team in?
Not much.
Okay.
Good wins help you way more than bad losses do. And I know even in our discussion last night in our mock selection committee, those bad losses came up once in a while. I always kind of cringe a little bit because if you look through the history of the NCAA tournament and teams getting in, have teams having 2 quad 3 losses, and you kind of have to drill down too. Those are above 100 losses. So they're not horrible. Now they were at home. That hurts, right?
Yeah.
So, but they're not horrible. When you start seeing 3 little red dots over on that 3 and 4 side, then that's when you get worried. And I don't think Nebraska will have an opportunity for one of those anymore. So I think they're safe there. I think the thing that's holding them back right now is record. Okay. Yeah. And that sounds silly because you look at everything else, but 17 and 13. Okay. They're right on the precipice. They're going to have one more loss to be an at-large, right? That puts them at 14. 14's the danger zone. You go to 15, I think maybe one team has gotten in with 15 losses. I think that was Vanderbilt a few years ago, but they had 21 wins.
Yeah.
And played the toughest schedule in the country. Okay.
Yeah. Good point.
They're at 13, so they're going to have one more. That's 14. So obviously they cannot lose to Iowa. Mm-hmm. That loss would pretty much seal their fate.
Okay. Do they need?
Would
they need to win in the Would they need to win in the Big Ten Conference tourney?
Yeah, that's hard to say. It depends on who they play. Obviously, their first game, they'll have a team that they're very capable of beating. I think the other thing my partner Dave over at Brackville looked up was that the only team to get in like the last 5 years or so with 14 losses had 19 wins.
Okay.
And that was like a Michigan State team, and they had a pretty good resume. Now, Nebraska's is maybe not quite as good as theirs, but it's there. The metric numbers for Nebraska are kind of hurting them a little bit right now. They got, excuse me, 51 in Ken Palm. We had a discussion last night about WOB. It's a new metric that's on the team sheet. It's a win above the bubble.
Oh.
And they're at 55, which would mean they're underwater on that. 45 is like the level.
Okay.
I think even the NCAA uses 40. So they're quite a bit under the water there. So that's kind of a little bit of a problem. So if they want to feel safe, two things have to happen. One, obviously they got to beat Iowa.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Two, they need to win a couple in the Big Ten tournament and hope that the committee takes those games with a little bit of weight on them. And if they do, they'll be okay. They have a couple things in their favor. One, the team that I have them paired against, Oklahoma, plays Texas Saturday. That's basically a loser out game.
Yeah.
Oklahoma already is in trouble, although conference record is not taken into consideration. We talked about this, I think, last week.
Mhm.
They are at 5-13. Excuse me, 5-12.
Yeah.
If they lose, they'll be 5-13. That means they started their conference right after their first of the year. I keep harping on this. So that means right now, as we sit right today, this second, they've won 28% of their games from January 1st.
That is
Now, yes, they're playing in the toughest conference we probably ever had. So that has to be taken into consideration. Their resume overall is better than Nebraska's, and they have more quality wins. But I can't believe that in a committee room somebody won't bring up that fact. So it's really big game for them. Texas is on the outside looking in. They have to have a win. So one of those teams will be knocked out, and so that'll help them. The other team to watch, there's two other teams to watch. Boise State. I'm not quite sure who they play tomorrow, but if they lose, that would be huge for Nebraska as well. You do not want North Carolina to beat Duke.
Yeah. Great point. Because they're
North Carolina beating Duke would probably, I think, in most people's minds, edge them in because that's what's holding them back.
yeah.
They have great computer numbers. They've won one game in quad one.
Is that are they
So-
on the first four out? Where are they at for you right now?
First four out, yeah.
Okay.
Their other stuff is too good to overlook.
Sure.
But because they're 38 in the net,
That's crazy.
all of their numbers are really good.
I don't get the net.
But they have one win in the top in Q1,
Yeah.
and I don't even know if 2 wins are going to save. Now they're undefeated in quad 2, 6-0. So overall, they're 7-10, which obviously isn't horrible. They too have a bad loss, losing to Stanford at home. But they just haven't beaten anybody. I mean, they only have one win against the field, and that's UCLA.
Jeez.
So even
Jeez
if they got
Louise.
one more win against Duke, that would be 2 wins against the field. That's still not in very good territory. So they're still iffy. Now, what's going on with them? They played the 5th toughest non-conference schedule in the country. So
Mhm. They did play a tough one.
the other team that I think is definitely at play here, and we're not going to find this out till next week, and that's Xavier.
Mhm.
Xavier, again, same boat as Nebraska, has only that one quad one win. They, however, have, I believe, 4 wins against the field because they've got wins over Creighton, they've got wins over UConn. So they're in better shape in that regards. The other thing that they're way better shape in, they have a golden opportunity in the Big East tournament because it's going to be probably Well, I mean, I don't think UConn's going to lose to Seton Hall again, so I can say with certainty it's going to be Xavier. It's going to be Xavier and Marquette in the first game.
Tim, you
4-5 game.
You do this bracketology, and a lot of people start to take it in over like the last month of the season in the same way that if there's a storm coming, they start to all become local meteorologists.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at this, and especially Husker fans look at the bubble and say, 4-game losing streak, lost 5 of the last 6, had a 6-game losing streak before they had a 1-4 in a row. They look at Nebraska and say, this isn't a tournament team. They don't look like a tournament team. How weak does the overall bubble look this year that keeps teams like Nebraska and Oklahoma and Texas and North Carolina with a chance going into this weekend?
Horrendously weak. Yeah, it's probably the weakest I've ever seen. Like, there's teams, you're right. Normally, Nebraska, Oklahoma would not be even in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Indiana, you could still make a case for because they have some high-quality wins. San Diego's my other team, San Diego State. They just haven't their record's fine. They just haven't beat that many quality teams. So, but anyway, yeah, Nebraska's got to watch out for Xavier because next week, because if Xavier beats Marquette and then they play St. John's, if they won that game, they're in. They'd have, that would be 6 quality wins against the field. That would be too much to overcome. But so, it's going to be. I would get, if I'm projecting, I would guess North Carolina's not going to be Duke. So that pretty much rules them out because they got nothing to play. They don't have any quality teams that are going to play in the ACC. Xavier would be the one to watch for. Boise could be.
Oh,
yeah, they could get more quality wins in the Mountain West. So those would be the ones. And here's the other thing too. Let's be real. My partner Dave always talks about this too. We're probably going to lose a couple of bids here. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to come along in the A10 or the AAC and win that conference and kick somebody out. So if that happens, then they're in big trouble. Plus, we haven't really, I don't really see it, but a lot of people do. Drake has a chance with their tremendous record and season, and they did beat Vanderbilt. They have a chance to edge in. How is the committee going to view them? I know there are some mid-major athletic directors on that committee this year, so that's a possibility.
Hey, Tim, so two-parter here for you. And by the way, Tim Kruger, a bracketologist from Bracketville. Tim, who are the 1 seeds? And what are some interesting seeds that you might have that maybe you are a little bit higher on them or you guys are a little bit lower on them than some other bracketologists out there?
Sure. Yeah. Great question. So last night, we actually we have 40 teams in the field. So we still got to kind of do the bubble teams in, which we'll discuss tonight. And we did seed the top 3 lines though. Oh. And they came almost exactly how I had it. Just, I think, 1 team flipped around. So it's going to go Auburn, Duke, Houston, and then Florida.
Okay.
So that's pretty much standard with everyone right now. Florida's big win the other night, really, since that.
Yep.
The second seeds go Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan State. Those are the easy ones. The last number 2 is kind of a coin flip. We went Texas Tech. That's who I have.
Okay.
There was some play for A&M. There was some play for St. John's. There was some play for a few other teams. And then the 3 seeds, let me pull up. I don't remember exactly how we had the 3s. The 3s ended up, surprisingly to me a little bit, was Kentucky. I have Kentucky lower.
Oh. Okay.
I have them like the number 1-4. But they were the number 1 3 seed. And then St. John's, Wisconsin, Texas A&M. I think Wisconsin, A&M, St. John's are all within a 1 or 2 places where I have them. That's fine. Kentucky was a little jump. I see why they had Kentucky. I mean, they just have so many high-quality wins.
Yeah.
On the resume.
Yeah,
so it's not crazy. But that's kind of where they sit. Interesting discussion, though. Like, you mentioned Creighton earlier. I was interested to see how the group did. And nationally too, I think they're really not valuing Creighton because I think if you polled Big East people, most people would say Creighton is the second. I mean, UConn, Marquette, and Creighton are really close, but I think most people would say Creighton's the second best team, and they're probably going to be the second best team in the standings too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet they're not getting much love.
Yeah.
Last night they didn't get much love. Like, I kind of foresee the fact that this group, our mock selection, is going to put them a 9 seed,
Really?
which I think that's crazy.
Crazy.
Low.
No way.
Now, if you're going to put them in 8, 9, doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
You know what color jersey you're wearing, but
Huh.
I just think they're undervalued, and the issue is just the fact they just don't have the depth of quality wins.
Yeah.
And that's what's holding them back. But you are going to have a couple of Big East, the Georgetown ADs on there, plus Stu Jackson, who used to be assistant head of the Big East and now is in WCC. He's on the committee as well, so he follows the Big East closely. So you are going to have 2 Big East guys on that committee, basically. So that will help out.
Okay.
Their computer numbers get better and better every day. But I get it, though. Again, we've talked about this. They're in that situation where the 8s, 7s, and 6s, and even it drifting into the 5s a little bit, they're all lumped together. They all have the same record, basically.
Yeah.
Basically the same resume. Some have a few better wins, some don't. You sprinkle in a St. Mary's and Gonzaga in that thing that have more wins, but not quality wins. It's hard to move up because it's just, nobody's taking a big fall and nobody's taking a big rise.
The lines are definitely
stuck in the mud.
The lines kind of get blurred a little bit, right, between the Louisvilles and Mississippis and UCLAs and Illinois and Kansases and Mississippi States, right? Like, they're kind of all good, not great, have good wins, have some bad weeks or whatnot. But, like, that's a great analysis, Tim. Like, it really is. There's 3 tiers to this. There is the top of the top. Then when you kind of get past that 4 line, you have 5, 6, 7, which are all quality, and then the bottom kind of falls out when you get toward the bubble of the 9, 10, and 11. I mean, it's a very,
very good point. Good point.
Yeah, it's a very interesting kind of bracket. You kind of have to put together. I want to ask you before we let you go here. Last question: Tim Kruger at Bracketville, our bracketologist, you've been doing an awesome job for us all season long. So I want to thank you for that, Tim. Local question. So you have Omaha, you have Lincoln, and you have Creighton. And you have 3 head coaches who are all on kind of different trajectories right now. You have Chris Crutchfield, who's done an incredible job with the Omaha program. I'm sure that when, some other jobs around the country open up, that his name is going to get thrown out there. You have Fred Hoiberg, who is in his 6th season, who very well, is on the hot seat, at this point after their kind of disappointing end to the season. We'll see what happens against Iowa and in the Big Ten Conference tourney. And then you have Coach Greg McDermott, who's been at Creighton for a real long time. And, there hasn't been a lot of rumblings of his name in the Indiana job or anything like that. But, it has been, quite the ride for Coach Mack at Creighton. My question to you, Tim, is do you think there is a possibility that at this time or maybe in the beginning of next season, there are 3 brand new head coaches for all Nebraska college basketball teams?
I don't see Hoiberg so much on a hot seat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't. I just think I don't know what I don't think the expectations were huge this year. But
sure.
Hey, I know there's a past athletic director. What did he say? Be competitive and be Creighton. I think that was his goal. So
they did. He's done both of them,
down, right?
Yeah. Good point. That's a great point.
So I think he's okay.
Okay.
And I'm not sure man, when you replace somebody like what Fred Hoiberg has done, and not that he's, got Sweet 16s or anything, but just he's done a good job. He's having them in the hunt for NCAA berths where a lot of years they weren't. So when you roll the dice and want to replace somebody like that, man, you better have the right guy. You know, it's kind of like in the NFL when you go free agents to pick that quarterback, he better be the guy or you're screwed.
Yeah.
Sure. I think I hope Crutchfield stays around another year because I've seen this happen too many times where a one-season guy does a tremendous job and then somebody comes calling because they're looking for the next, gold mine, right? And they take that coach, and it's I don't want to say too big a leap, but it just isn't a good fit. Maybe it's a different program. I hope he stays there and does it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
We've seen, Prom over at Iowa State was a perfect example. A guy had 1 or 2 good years. Oh, well, let's put him at Iowa State, and he just failed miserably. Greg McDermott's an interesting case. I haven't heard his name sprinkled out there for Indiana, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
He's getting toward the end of his career. Of course, they all say that. Dana Altman said he was going to retire 10 years ago, and he's still going strong. So I think he's, I think he's probably, he wants that Final Four.
Yeah.
I think the other title that he'd really like to get is the postseason Big East tourney title. I really love their path this year.
Okay,
I like
Tim. All right.
They stay away from red hot Xavier.
Yeah.
They stay away from St. John's until the finals. So hey, now you would have to potentially meet UConn, which that arena will be 90% UConn fans. So that's a problem. But I don't know how long he's going to coach. He's got a lot of interest outside basketball. I've heard somebody threw his name out there at Arizona State. If Hurley left, I don't know. I don't know that he wants to go into any kind of long-term, fix up a program type thing. Maybe,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I don't think so. He's got it really good here, and I think the big thing to him would be how that portal works out this year. If they can add a couple pieces in the portal, get one of those Europeans they're after, and then they've got a Hudson Greer coming in as a 5-star guard. If Pop comes back, that's a pretty good team next year. I know
Yeah.
you're losing Kalkbrenner and Atlas and Neal, but that you can, that's a pretty good team that'll be, and I think he'd be excited about that. It just depends if what he wants to do, but he can do whatever he wants. Like, there's going to be. And by the way, this is his best coaching job ever at Creighton. This is what he did this year is tremendous.
Couldn't agree more. And there's definitely some work to do in the offseason, but if you're going to peg anybody who is going to be able to make the right moves and put the right team together and then coach them into being competitive for the tournament, Greg McDermott is going to be high up on that list. So, Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
Can I ask one very quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Very quick, Tim.
Go ahead.
And nobody is going to care about this, so sorry, listeners. Ohio Valley Conference, who do you guys have coming out of there?
Oh, man. Hold on. Let me pull it up.
Is it SEMO or is it SIUE?
Well, we've got SEMO as the team right now because they won the conference.
Okay.
I asked, like, Rocco Miller's our kind of mid-major guru, and so I work with him on the bottom seeds, getting all those done ahead of time. And I actually asked him about SEMO. I said, "Are they going to be in?" And he goes, "Yeah." I think there's a possibility that might be a conference with an upset. So he didn't list the team, but certainly Edwardsville's one that jumps into mind.
Good, go Cougars.
So, hey, banner brackets tonight. Just go on YouTube. Banner brackets start at 5:00. We go all night. You're going to see a lot of the seating going on. I don't know if we'll get down far enough for Creighton tonight, but maybe. So that might be something to check in on. That would probably be later in the night, but we'll certainly get into some bubble talk with Nebraska. So
love that.
Yeah.
All right, banner brackets, bracketfield.com. Tim Kruger, thank you so much, my man. We'll see you next week when we're going to be 3 days away from Selection Sunday. We'll talk to you then, okay?
All right, man. Bye.
All right. Talk to you, Tim. All righty. Well, we still got a lot to cover here. College basketball still in full effect. We'll talk a little bit of Nebraska football, as Matt Rule will talk for the first time in a while on next Tuesday. Ryan Kalkbrenner has his final game for Creighton tomorrow. We'll talk to Mike Schaefer at 9, Matt Verzal at 9:20. Maybe get a little bit of Fred Hoiberg talk. We talked about it yesterday, so we'll see. A lot of bases to cover, a lot of things happening. Don't go anywhere. Listen to Gary and Matt. I mean, the range here. I mean, just we go from 70s to 90s to Seven Mary 3 to Looking Glass to Sydney Lauper to Fleetwood Mac all the way up to Macklemore.
What?
I'm talking about your
Oh,
music
I
selection.
thought you meant today. I was like, hell, we haven't had that many breaks.
No. You're cooking. Jimmy's always cooking. Hey, we're gonna get to the equitable bank. I can't say that word.
It's harder than you think, and I'm not being facetious, which that is also not a dig at you when I say that. I'm being honest. Equitable bank.
It is equitable bank.
That's why some people say Doug's inbox, because
Inbox.
Doug, you can't screw up Doug
Inbox.
unless
Hey,
you call him Doug.
Do you know what they do? Do you know what they do at Equitable Bank? They take banking personally. We go to Nathan, who emails, "It is totally our destiny that this unlikable team will give us our first NCAA tournament win."
Yeah, that's how it goes.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. If there was any team to do it, it would be the one that has just absolutely tortured you.
Then Fred and Lil Red go on Marshawn Lynch on a golf cart. And
It would, because the team started out 12-2, lost 6 in a row, won 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 6, I forget, and now has lost 4 in a row. And you're just like, who is this team? Why do my emotions need to feel so much pain and ride all the waves? And then, oh yeah, of course you win a tournament game.
And at times they look like they couldn't score at the Bunny Ranch.
I can see that happening just as well as I can see a 30-point loss on Sunday.
Yeah.
Like, all of those things are
That
in
would
play.
be
Isn't that
sad.
how many times have radio
I would
guests
be
that
sad.
we have and hosts on this station, myself included, have said they could either lose by 20 or they could win the game?
Go get
That's just what this team is. I don't think you can argue that there's any type of team that's more frustrating to root for, at least watch week in and week out, than that type of team where you don't know if they're going to look like, I keep saying the 83 76ers or the Washington Generals. Like,
We could just say Jekyll and Hyde.
That's a great contrast, though. Good for you.
I knew
67 and 15, faux against the Generals.
I knew you would love that 80s basketball reference.
Well, I was
Jimmy
alive for that
Chavez.
championship.
You love a good
That makes one of
70s and
us.
80s
Yeah.
basketball.
I mean,
might get
granted, I was a couple months old and probably crapping myself, but
I'll tell you something right now.
The Lakers did too.
If there's an old Earl the Pearl Monroe jersey at this Husker garage sale that they're going to have in April, Jimmy Chavez will find it. Jeff goes
yeah,
into
because you'll be there for me.
Exactly. Jeff says the larger issue with poor college officiating is that the youth sports culture isn't allowing young officials to grow. Have you ever attended a youth sporting event? Parents berate officials, and it seems like it's just an accepted practice at this point. Why would any official stick with the profession when they are constantly criticized by fans who don't understand the game? It's not like the pay is worth it. Jeff, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Right on the head.
There's not a proper feeder system, a way to move up. You see it. I mean, I remember high school games with like Brooks Wells, you know?
Yeah.
He's pretty good.
That when I was in high school, that it was the Wells family who was doing a lot of games across central Nebraska. And then they've done a lot of college games, and they've done a lot of really big games. Well, what's the reason for that? They got to do stuff at a lower level and then work their way up. So much stuff at the lower level, including weekend youth, where you're there and you're playing 5 games in a day and everyone's paying $500,000 to play through the season. Those officials are going through the ringer there so that you can spend a lot of money on little Timmy, who's probably going to get burnt out and stop playing in 8th grade.
Well, the youth sports has become a cottage industry, and it really has dawned from this kind of travel hockey mindset that is now seeping into other sports like basketball and like baseball, which is just making it more expensive, and volleyball as well. But then what you have to have on top of that is like there are literal businesses that make pretty decent livings just training youth sport athletes, like literal like gyms and personal trainers and people who go to college and get degrees in order to open up places like that. And so more and more places like that, there's investment in that. And when you have an investment in that, you have parents who have more of a stake on the game, right? If you're paying for your kid a lot of money to be on a team or a lot of money to go and train with personal trainers and to get better at the game, you're going to want that, them to play better. And, those games, the tension raises a little bit and things get out of hand. And that's how you have situations like that where officials get absolutely just dogpiled on. And sometimes I really don't blame younger officials when they're like, I don't really want to do this anymore. Nathan types into the chat, isn't that the problem, though? Why do you have to start at a lower level and work your way up? No other profession does this to this degree. Yeah, I mean,
every profession does this. You don't start out in our industry. You're not on Sports Center as your first job.
no.
You know?
You got to get practice, and you got to work your way up. But at the same time, it's like there needs to
And that's
be
before the politics comes in.
Well, exactly, Jimmy. That's a great point too.
Yeah.
Like that's another aspect of it. It's like
I don't want a first year guy
No.
doing Big Ten games.
exactly.
Or girl. I don't want
need to get experience.
I don't want a first year whoever doing an NBA game. I want to know that they've had something on their resume in the same way that whatever field you go into, from picking up garbage to doing something on Wall Street, you've probably been an intern or the new guy, and you've been lower on the scale than everyone else around you. That's the way it works in every industry. It's the way it works in officiating.
Way it works everywhere, and that's kind of how you build your way up. Hey, one guy who was the new guy, who was kind of at the lower part of the totem pole, who built his way up to being one of the greats, is going to be honored tomorrow. That's Ryan Kalkbrenner of Creighton basketball as their Big East regular
He could go into radio one day if you've heard him talk. Most people have. He has the gift.
He does have a very nice voice. But with Ryan Kalkbrenner, 163 career games played at Creighton. That's the most all time. He's second in blocks in all time. He's first in box plus minus, which is like, the average box plus minus over a career, which is crazy.
I've actually never heard someone talk about a career plus minus like in this way.
So here's why I bring it up. To have the most career games ever played and still be the highest box plus minus over a certain minimum is actually so impressive, because it means that every time he stepped out into the court, he was one of the most effective players on the court that given day, consistently, like game in and game out. And like, that's the one thing about Ryan Kalkbrenner, where there are some guards that you have watched, not only this season, but I'm sure in your past, where you can be like, man, when they're hot, they're hot.
Mm-hmm.
You can't beat them. Like, there's nothing you can do. When Cam Jones gets going and Marquette, is a great example this year. Marquette is hard to beat, right? But Ryan Kalkbrenner really, throughout his entirety career, and a career that has spanned longer than any other career in Creighton in terms of games played, to have that, to play that long and be that consistent for so long is just a testament to how great of a player that Ryan Kalkbrenner is. He's fourth in rebounds. He's first in effective field goal percentage of all time, and he's second in points. I don't know when they're going to retire the jersey. They might as well retire the jersey tomorrow. I mean, when Greg McDermott gets on the microphone, he should say, hey, no one's ever going to wear number 11 again. Because no one should ever wear number 11 again. He's just that great of a player, and he's a competitor and a guy like, hasn't been in too much trouble or anything like that, and has just been a pretty model guy, a good face of a really good program. He's won at such a high level for so long. He's played a lot of winning basketball. He wants that Big East Conference Tourney championship. A lot, I think, on the macro national level has been said about Creighton and maybe the lack of depth and the fact that they may not have the ceiling to go and upset a 1 seed and the importance of getting a 7 seed so you can play those 2 seeds. But I'll tell you this right now, when you're just talking about smaller picture Big East, they've competed in every single game against the top teams in the Big East. They've beaten Marquette. They've beaten UConn. They've beaten St. John's. And the games that they lost against UConn and against St. John's, they were right there to the very end. UConn needed not a miracle, but one of the greatest performances I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes with Liam McNeely in order to beat Creighton on the road. And a lot can be said that if Kalkbrenner doesn't go down in crunch time against St. John's, that they may end up winning that game. So Creighton is in it to win it. That's an accomplishment that Ryan Kalkbrenner has had has circled on his wish list for a very long time. They're going to have a great shot at doing it. He should be the Big East Player of the Year. There's no doubt about it. And I think tomorrow there's 2 other guys who are going to be honored Jemiah Neal and Stephen Ashworth. And when you talk about the the 3 guys tomorrow that are going to be honored, or those 3 guys, you talk about a great description of how Greg McDermott has built this program. And what I mean by that is that you have your homegrown guy in Ryan Kalkbrenner. You have the guy that you brought him in when he was a freshman. You've seen him grow right before your eyes. You've seen him develop into this, kind of smaller, lankier 7-footer and grow into this absolutely dominant force on both ends of the floor. But then you look at Jemiah Neal and Stephen Ashworth, 2 guys that, and more so Ashworth, that Creighton fans have really dug into, that they love, that they relate to their team. Yet both of those guys didn't start their careers at Creighton. Neal was a transfer from Arizona State, Ashworth a transfer from Utah State. And when you look at these 3 guys and what they've accomplished and the really good basketball that they're playing, it's what we've seen from this program in the last couple of years. You have your homegrown dudes who you see them develop right away from freshman year, and they get better right in front of your eyes. But then you also have these players that they're able to bring in and supplement what they're building and have them fit into the culture and make instant impacts. Your Ryan Hawkins, your Baylor Shiremans, your Denzel Mahoney's, like dudes who started their careers elsewhere, but were able to fit in right away. Neal and Ashworth have done that. And I think Neal has Ashworth has already made a really great legacy for himself as a Blue Jay. Neal has the opportunity to improve that because he's just a catalyst of this team. And, back to Greg and the roster building, like you see that coming too. Like you see, the Jason Greens and the Jackson McAndrews who have shown really great promise this year at times. And those are guys that have been brought in and have been built up with the program. But that next year, with you're losing Kalkbrenner and you're losing Ashworth and you're losing Neal, like you're going to need to go out and get some transfer portal guys and supplement that as well and have them fit into the program. So this Creighton team, I think it's going to be tough to beat a 1 seed. If they can get to a 7 seed line, and it'll probably take them winning the Big East tournament to do so, I'm confident if they're a 7 seed that they can get to the Sweet 16. I really am. I think that this team can make it to the second weekend if they're a 7 seed. If they're an 8 or a 9, these 1 seeds are really good. It's going to be tough.
Well, yeah, it's once you get into, what you have in the Big East because they've been competitive. So the Big East tournament, Creighton can win it or they can lose in the semifinals. It's there's a big swing there because of like how tough it is right at the top. NCAA tournament, no matter what team you are, is so matchup dependent.
Oh,
it is so.
Yeah.
Even if they're an 8 or a 9, you might not get to that one because it might be a bad matchup.
Sure.
If you're a 7, you feel probably better because how crappy those 10s look all sitting on the bubble.
Yeah.
So you're going to feel really good about that. And then obviously getting a 2, but like those 2s are going to be tough. So which 2 is it? Which 2 seed is it? Is it someone who moves up over this next week, or is it someone who fell from a 1? It's so matchup dependent. That's why wins in the NCAA tournament are so tough overall, but especially to stack them in the way that Creighton has over the last 4 years.
Yeah. Consensus right now on Bracket Matrix has Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. Tim Kruger kind of revealed that to us in our last interview, that those are kind of the 4 1 seeds. And then the 2 seeds, Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan State, and Wisconsin. Creighton played Alabama earlier in the year on the road. Alabama did win that game. It was fairly competitive. They battled. But granted, Creighton is a different team now than when they played that Alabama team because they were just coming off of that Pop Isaacs injury. They've now kind of developed past that, and they have different roles and just kind of different understanding of where they need to play and how they need to play. So that would be an interesting matchup. But, credit to Coach McDermott. Tim said it. It's been his best coaching job, in his opinion, in his career. It's hard to argue with that considering the fact that this team changed so much in one snap of the fingers. And they not only have made it to the NCAA tournament, I mean, they're locked in, but they're a couple bounces away and some runs away from being the Big East regular season champions. Like I think back to like Liam McNeely just had his night. And that was it. And UConn beat them, and that was a tough one. But they were dominating that game in the first half, and they just couldn't put their foot on the neck of their opponent. And then, man, if Kalkbrenner doesn't go down with that foot injury against St. John's, and with 10 minutes to go, You never know. I mean, he himself, with how he plays, can just spark a run whenever that happens. So the Big East tournament is going to be something to watch. It's going to be fun. There's you have 4 teams that are for sure in the tournament, but then you have Xavier, who's kind of that wild card, who's playing really good basketball right now. They just beat Creighton by 20, not too long ago. So we'll see how that develops. But a lot of great basketball on the plate for everyone in this state. Omaha going to play tomorrow between the winner of South Dakota and North Dakota State. Nebraska plays Iowa in what is a must-win to make the NCAA tournament on Sunday at 11:30, and Creighton honors one of the greatest players of all time tomorrow when they take on Butler at the CHI Health Center. Hey, don't go anywhere. We got a little high school basketball and women's basketball update, and then we'll be joined by our good friend Mike Schaefer at 9 o'clock here on Gary and Matt. The NSAA Girls Basketball State Championships are in full effect. I don't know if you... First off, I want to make this comment, and hopefully it doesn't turn into a full segment because we only have a couple of minutes here.
That'd be a quick segment.
Lincoln media people, or just media people in general?
Ooh, media fights. Here we go.
There are Omaha media people down there in Lincoln as well, and we thank them all for their coverage. They're doing a wonderful job spotlighting these incredible high school athletes
Well, that's
who
not how
definitely
you
deserve it.
talk.
They have a Mountain Dew problem. There is a lot of Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cowboys in the mid-'90s had a cocaine problem. We all have our vices.
Sure, that's a good point.
Well,
but
okay, here's the reason that I see it. And I drank a liter of Code Red in here this morning.
Yes, which is why I mention it.
And I've been known to have my fair share of the Mountain Dew, the rocket fuel at Husker football games. And
Yeah.
here's the
Me
thing.
too.
You need to pick me up.
It's a Pepsi school. So when you're that, to me, that's what it comes down to.
So
if it was a Coke school, Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
if it was a Coca-Cola school, I'm probably drinking Coke or Sprite. Like
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem either
or
way.
Dr. Pepper.
Because it is a Pepsi school, I am most likely drinking the Mountain Dew or water.
So here's another thing too. So
Which are
that's
practically
what
the
I
same
was
thing.
going to say. Is this I like Mountain Dew a lot, and there's just a conglomerate of people who like Mountain Dew, or is it this has a lot of caffeine and there's not a coffee machine around here, which I don't know if there is in the Devaney or in Pinnacle Bank Arena. I'm pretty sure there is one in
There is one at Memorial.
Yeah. So is it I need the caffeine pickup, or do just so many people not like Pepsi where it's like I have to have a Mountain Dew because I'd rather have a Mountain Dew than Pepsi?
I'd rather have a Mountain Dew than Pepsi.
See,
and if it's an 8 p.m. tip on a Tuesday night, yeah, I'm probably grabbing 3 Mountain Dews out of the fridge
I'm
and
not
going to
judging.
my media section.
Obviously, Coke is better than Pepsi.
Yes.
All right? You'll never hear me say otherwise. At the same time,
But
I am
Pepsi
not,
is the drink of a generation.
But I am not one of those
It's the
guys
choice of a
where
generation.
they go, I want a Coke, and they go, well, would you like Pepsi? I go, no, I'm fine. Like, there's some people.
Could Pepsi take its
my
7
Coke-
games against Coke?
No, hell no. It's a gentleman's sweep. But like,
Yeah, that's kind of like that.
Gary, our co-host here,
Our coworker.
is very much like, oh, if they don't have Coke, I'm not drinking Pepsi, which is a little wild. They're not that far apart. It's not that much different. It is different. Don't get me wrong. It's not crazy different. Anyway,
But yes, because the high school girls basketball championships are played in Lincoln and they're played at Pinnacle Bank Arena and the Devaney Center,
They're all fueled by Mountain Dew.
you're getting
Both teams.
You are running on Mountain Dew for a lot of the media.
everybody's running around writing the papers on.
And then you
Mountain
get
Dew.
some
Hey,
Ozempic on the way out just to kind of complete the cycle of health here.
This isn't Hollywood. Wow.
We
Well, that's
we
nothing to
actually-
do with losing weight.
It actually was a really good a day yesterday. The NSA Girls State Basketball Championships. Guardian Angels, Central Catholic
Also
ended
known
up,
as the Fighting Angles.
yeah, which that was a big upset yesterday, an 8-1 upset over Johnson Brock, who was 25-1, entering the Class CU C2 championships. They'll play Elkhorn Valley today at 1:30 at the Devaney Center, and then that was
But
not
the Guardian Angels girls were 21-5. Like
Oh,
out of,
they
out of,
weren't
out of
sorry.
West Point, they're very
but still,
good.
But that wasn't the only 8-1 upset.
It just
we
means more
had.
in their
In
district.
Class D2, Wilcox Hildreth beat Shelton, who
Is
also
that a person?
was that's a school.
It's two different towns. Will Hill,
Oh,
Falcons,
okay.
Fort Kearney Conference.
Consolidation. Yes.
They beat Shelton, who also was 25-1 yesterday. They'll end up playing Dorchester today at the Devaney Center at 6:00. The first game of the day. will
Quick
be-
shout out to Wilcox Hildreth for being the only win on our football schedule when I was a freshman.
Okay, shout
People
out.
forget.
First game today will be Lincoln
I didn't,
Christian
Caleb.
taking on Gothenburg at 9:00. That's at Pinnacle Bank Arena. And then in Class A, it'll be Millard West taking on North Star. That game will be at 1:30 at PBA. And then West Side will play Bellevue West at 3:15. The winner of those 2 games will go to the Class A state championships. In Class B, Omaha Skutt will play Bennington. That's at 6:00 at Pinnacle Bank Arena. And essentially your PBA main event will be Gretna East playing Waverly at 7:45 in
Ooh,
Class
Vikings.
B to go to the Class B championship. So
I mean,
there
Gretna
is-
East with that upset of Pius,
Yes, yeah, they
at least by seed.
it
But
was a 7-2. Gretna East was 18-6 heading into that game. They beat the 22-4 Lincoln Pius. Hey, that's the one thing. I really don't know if they're upsets or not. Well, seedings and whatnot. Could they ever put spreads on these things? You know, like no one can bet on them, but let's just put a hypothetical.
He hasn't been
spread.
listening long, hasn't he?
I will tell you, one, probably, but two, I will tell you a story about a politician getting in trouble for that
Oh no!
like a decade ago.
I'm just saying. Like I'm not saying
You can gamble on anything.
not-
Like
I'm not-
$50 to Smales calls picks his nose.
I'm
or
not
Smales
saying
kid.
I'm not saying that you should be able to gamble
Another
on
50,
the
he eats it.
Nebraska Girls State High School basketball championships. But just for a reference, if they just handicapped it so everybody knew the like stakes of the game and the magnitude of upsets, that would be helpful.
Lincoln Christian minus all the points.
Hey, talking about we'll be talking to someone who may
Yeah,
be
ask him.
gambling
There.
on Nebraska State Girls Championship basketball. We're going to bring in Mike Schaefer from 24/7 Sports right after this break. Don't go anywhere here on 1620 The Zone. Kevin in the YouTube chat. But shout out Kevin. Shout out and you know, guys, like if you're in the YouTube chat and you're chatting us up, we see him. We love you. Fong Wei, Charles.
They're my work
Kevin,
family.
Mike, Jimmy, you always do a great job interacting with these guys.
Hell, I like some of
Debo,
them better than my
Captain,
own
Tim,
family.
Sith, J-Man. All you guys are the best. Thanks for commenting every day. We feed off those comments. And Kevin wrote in, Matt, you need help after me talking about.
We all do.
I do think. Look, I'm not saying we should be able to gamble on the Nebraska State High School Girls Championship. I'm just saying it would be helpful if
you
we
did.
had some lines. All right, if just to see what these matchups are supposed to look
Yeah.
like. And we welcome in a guest
Yeah.
from Husker 24/7 who definitely would never gamble on Nebraska State High School girls basketball. Our very good friend Mike Schaefer.
I regret to inform you, I have definitely gambled on high school girls basketball at some point in my past.
I'm going to be honest.
Well, the state championships are played at Pinnacle Bank Arena,
Wait.
and there's a giant banner in there for the Warhorse.
Hey, Jimmy, I don't like that. You shouldn't have put the want.
Why?
You should have put the goal horn on because that's great. You know, everyone knows. Let me tell you something right now. If you have lived long enough and you have been involved sports long enough, at some
You've
point,
gambled on children?
You've gambled on at least one high school game. Okay? All right? No one wants to admit it, but you've gambled on at least one. Is that a bad statement?
No.
Yeah. If you're
That's
gambling
fair.
on 2 6-year-olds playing Mancala, you have a problem.
No, you've gambled, and I'm not saying like you made lives. Just be like, your high school versus another guy's high school. Hey, $10, my high school win.
Yeah,
That's called gambling.
That's called gambling.
Yes.
That's what it works. Hey, let's talk about something that we don't hope is a gamble. The Nebraska football team and just the current outlook of it right now. Mike, next Tuesday, Matt Rule will address the media for the first time. Since when? It's been a little bit.
Well, other than doing his national
That is true.
press tour.
But he'll address the local media for the first time in a little bit. What is the first thing on your mind when you're looking at this? What are you looking for Matt Rule to talk about, to answer? What are questions that you need to know the answer to right away?
I would love to know if he's putting together the scouting report for the intramural all-star team of college women that will be competing against Midland.
Yeah.
Would love to know what the process is there, how deep into the film they're getting, if there's like a training camp. No, it's interesting because as you ask that, I'm trying to think of what direction I would go, because I think there's kind of a variety of things that you can ask. I would probably hold off on a bunch of the nuts and bolts stuff that you're going to get out of spring anyways, because spring football won't start still for another week or so after he talks. So there's certainly things that can be gleaned there about who's going to be available and all of that. But I think at this juncture, after a conversation I had yesterday, I am somewhat interested in how Nebraska's setup will be in terms of recruiting with a general manager. I mean, how much of Matt Rule will be less involved in the overall recruiting operation because you now have a GM? Is this like a setup like the NFL where the GM heads up the acquisition department or whatever you're trying to do there? Like, is the GM heavily involved in setting your board? How does your recruiting personnel department break down from that point forward? Those are the sort of things that I want to ask about, but I can fully understand why other people would have less interest than I would. But I think, as we look at the idea of general managers in college athletics, or specifically with college football here, it does really kind of shift the division of labor and kind of what you're attempting to do. And does that free up Matt Rule to focus on other stuff?
Yeah.
So I kind of have more questions in that regard, but I fully prepare and understand that that's more of a B thing than it would be the greater good of society wanting to know about it.
No, I think that's something that I'm definitely curious about, because you've had so much change within the program with the staff, and then what does a GM mean in Lincoln, as well as the thing that I'm curious about to hear from Rule is how is he tackling, what is the process for this spring, and then ultimately tackling the roster limit? Is it exactly like the NFL where you've got certain cutoff dates that you're going to implement to where you're cutting so many guys and they know where they're at? Because you're going to get through the spring and you're probably going to have guys have to jump in during those spring practices, Shafe, to even get into the portal.
Yeah, what's always fascinating, and I know previous Nebraska staffs have done this before, where, especially in terms of transition, where you have kind of your roster and you break it into sections, and there's that section of guys that you don't really know about, and you might be ready to move on from. They wouldn't obviously give those names early, but you have to think that there's like 25, 30 people on a list that are at the bottom of that roster where they already kind of know, like, hey, we're likely to move on here. We think this guy's going to jump into the spring portal or whatever it is. The fascinating thing is when a guy goes from that list and then he ends up being a major contributor, which is what played out with JoJo Doman, who Scott Frost and company were kind of ready to move on from when they first arrived in 2017, only to see JoJo Doman become one of the better players in the time that they were there. So you never know how that's all going to play out, but you'd have to think that there's some sort of like master list over there where they know the top 75 guys. This is what unquestioned these guys are going to be here. This is the core of our roster. And then you kind of have like 40, 50 names that break into two different lists more likely there.
Yeah.
Like we feel okay about, or we've got questions here, or we know that it's time for both sides to move on.
Hey, so we're now in the full swing of the 2026 football recruiting class. I know there's a lot of meat on the bone. There's a lot of visits to be had. There's a lot of parent meetings and whatnot. And, these things are constantly developing. But right now, Nebraska 45th on the 24/7 overall team rankings. They have 3 commits. What are some guys that they're looking to target in on right now that they're looking to go ahead and lock in this class? And is there anyone that they're really, really close on that maybe we could expect to commit pretty soon?
Yeah, I don't feel like there's anybody that there's just going to be a definite commitment from.
Okay.
The interesting thing is that the race to building this class, you're going to see some teams that add a bunch of guys early in their class and then sort of potentially shift around. You got Nebraska, who's likely taking anywhere from 13 to 15 commitments in this class. They're at 3 right now. So they already have 1/5 of their class. I think they're really invested in some guys where it's going to take some time. So I think it's going to be a bit of a slow build. I don't know that there's anyone I'm looking at right now outside of maybe say Jace Reynolds at Elkhorn North, where I feel 100% confident that he's going to end up at Nebraska. And I shouldn't say 100, it's more like 90, but I'd be pretty surprised if Jace Reynolds goes somewhere else. But beyond that, there's guys like Camden Jensen over in Colorado that I know that they love, Deacon Schmidt, Isaac Jensen right here in Nebraska over at Millard South that they're really high on. They've got defensive backs down in Florida like Danny Odom that they like quite a bit, that they've set up visits with. They have a number of tight ends that are set to visit in June. I think they want to take 2 in that class, and if they could get Camden Jensen and Isaac Jensen and you go Jensen and Jensen in your class, I think they'd be pretty excited about that.
That'd be awesome.
Obviously, they want offensive linemen, whether it's Kelvin Obed out in Idaho or a couple of the guys that are in Chicago. I think Peck and Mpuma are the last names there. They certainly have interest in trying to bring in a few offensive tackles and then mix in a couple interior guys as well. I mean, it's just sort of an interesting class. And I haven't mentioned St. Louis. There's probably multiple key targets there. Keenan Harris, the safety, Titan Davis, who I think is probably the number 1 guy on their board as a defensive lineman. They've got these guys coming in for visits. Jacob Eberhard is a talented 2-way player that could end up at safety or as a tight end wide receiver type. So there's a lot of different options for them, still at this point. But I think it's going to be a really slow build. And I think people are going to have to prepare for long stretches between commitments or even Nebraska to dip down. I mean, CJ Brownell, the defensive back, 24/7 Sports just put him in the top 100 of the country after a big performance at an Under Armour Orlando event. He's got a bunch of teams that are checking in on him. He's already set an official to Penn State. Clemson is going to get a visit. Florida State's going to get a visit. So Nebraska's ability to hang on to him is going to be a challenge, but he's a guy that they identified very early on and are going to hope that maybe the loyalty can win out there.
You look at like the changing landscape of college football, right? With the 105 scholarship limit and the transfer portal being as important as it is. Just quick little house cleaning question. typically the number of recruits or high school commits you get per class. Now, I know at sometimes it's case on case basis, depending on how many seniors you have, but typically that number is anywhere from like 23 to 27 commits on average for most teams, especially at the top of the rankings. Now, because of just the changing landscape of the transfer portal and all those other things, has that number been lowered, do you think, a little bit to, on average, how big high school recruiting classes will be?
Yeah, I think you're going to have a lot of teams in Nebraska is going to be one of them that are going to look to take, 13 to 15 high school guys every year and then supplement with the transfer portal. And because you can get a fair amount of guys in the portal that have multiple years of eligibility, blend that with some of your immediate 1-year guys, you can kind of make sure your roster remains stocked. And then Nebraska's in a spot where they have a really, really big chunk of their roster is made up of guys that have been in the program for 3 years or less, that are sophomore red shirts on down, the freshman red shirts, the true freshmen that they just don't know enough about at this point in time. And so I think if you like those guys a lot, you're not anticipating a lot of them to leave, and you're capped at 105, you might only have 27 spots available to you. So do you want to do 15 high school guys and 12 portal guys, or do you want, so it's just, it's going to be sort of interesting how they choose to go about doing this, because I think there's a variety of ways that it can go. I think they could certainly load up on as many high school guys as they can get if they think they're going to be a development program. But we know they need to win football games around here, and we know that they've had some misses on their roster, and the portal is always going to be important. So I think it's going to be more of a blend than I would have guessed probably a year ago.
When you were talking about the 2026 recruiting class, you brought up a lot of different areas, but we saw over this past offseason right now, because of an addition from the area to the staff, Kansas City really kind of exploded as something that Nebraska wanted to tap into. Do you see that being bigger and bigger down the road with these future recruiting classes?
It sure could be. Giuseppe Walker is probably the biggest name out of the Kansas City area that it feels like Nebraska is pursuing in this 2026 group. He would be a high 3-star or low 4-star running back. I believe Raymore Peculiar, same school that Jaden Doss went to, if I have that correct. But he's kind of the big one out of the Kansas City area specifically. I think there's some other guys that they like. And I certainly see Jamar Mosey being a big help, whether it's Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, just in that area in general. And then he's going to be involved recruiting around the country too. Yeah. But he's got so many connections in Kansas City. Caleb, you're absolutely right. That's going to be a spot that Nebraska wants to hit hard. And the more success it has there, the better. I mean, it was going through the roster when I was doing something on St. Louis, and it's just stunning how few players Nebraska has taken out of Missouri over the last 15 years. And, for St. Louis as an example, I mean, they've taken 2 players out of St. Louis, Missouri, and they've gotten 3 players from Hawaii in that same time span. Like, it can't be that hard to go into St. Louis. And then you're like, okay, well, what if you extrapolate it to Kansas City and everything else? I think they're just shy of double digits over the last 15 years. It might be like at 10 or 11. But that's not that much from an area that has produced a ton of great Huskers and a lot of a state that has produced as much talent for Nebraska as pretty much anything outside of the state. When you think about some of the great players that have come out of Missouri, and it's not always, the super high end guys, like you clearly have a Grant Wistrom or a player like that. But, Steve Warren is a Missouri guy. I believe Michael Rucker was a Missouri guy. So you have all these different talented individuals. DeJuan Gross was a St. Louis guy. Like, that was a state that had produced for Nebraska that I think if they can make that a thing again, it'd be really helpful. And if you look around college football, there are a lot of good teams that have players from the St. Louis area or Kansas City. And so it's something that Nebraska has to get back to.
Vincent Valentine was close enough to St. Louis to count, right?
Yeah, it's one of those where it's hard. So he and Tanner Farmer are in that category where you can call it a suburb of St. Louis.
Yeah.
Some people over there would 100% agree.
Shout out Edwardsville.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those where you just have to make a decision on it. You're more or less excluding them, but you can acknowledge that if you want to, you can push that number up to 4 with Farmer and Valentine.
What I would do for Nebraska to plant a flag at East St. Louis High School and just be like, nah, we're going to take 2 or 3 guys a year because that team and then that kind of Missouri, Illinois area is so
You'll get
good.
some speed.
Oh my Lord, will you? It is people don't get the East St. Louis
Hit
High
up
School
East St.
football
Louis,
team.
hit up St. Charles.
Ooh, it is different in that area of the country. Anyway, hey, so Mike, real quick before we get you out of here, Mike Schaefer of Huskers 24/7. I got to talk to you about Mike Eckler for 1 second. This is a guy who, was coaching during the Bo Pelini era, a very different, very, very different era of player and college football and team than we are now. Is there any surprise to you with a guy who has that much energy and intensity, has been able to continue to have such a high success in college football, considering the fact that the attitudes and the expectations from players to coaches have changed so drastically during that time?
Yeah, but I think it's important to acknowledge that Mike Eckler has changed pretty drastically in that time.
Sure.
I mean, this was a guy when he was at Nebraska had ambitions, I think, on at very least being a defense coordinator at a Power 4 or Power 5 then, or might even been Power 6. Who knows when the Big East is all 2 pairs. Basketball conference anyways. But it's a deal where a guy like that had ambitions to potentially even be a head coach. And then you go through it, right? Like, so he's at Nebraska. He moves on from Nebraska to be an assistant defense coordinator at Indiana. He's at Georgia. He's been at Kansas. Like, he's been to the mountaintop and he has been to the valley. And he knows college football in and out and had made a shift late in his career where he decided, when I say late in his career, he's still a pretty young guy, but like later in his career, where he decided he was really going to focus on special teams. And he wanted to be a, ace special teams coordinator. And I think that kind of adjustment and that kind of growth, because you see the success he had at Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think that's adapting to what is different in an environment. This is a guy who's a really strong recruiter at points in his career, but he has decided or had decided his route to sticking in college football at a high level was to be the best he could be at something that maybe gets overlooked or is a little undervalued. And it has resulted in him at Tennessee putting together a tremendous special teams unit. And now he's coming back to a place that he really believes in. He didn't go to school there. I think people sometimes forget that he went to Kansas State, but he really believed in Nebraska. He loved being here with Pelini. And I think it's a great opportunity for both sides. I mean, if he can do anything like he did at Tennessee, Nebraska absolutely hit a home run on that hire with Mike Eckler.
You still in Arizona?
No, I came back. I was back for the sadness last Saturday.
Really?
The Brennan Rigby show.
You need
I made it back in time for that. So
you guys need to have, you and BC both, and Brunsk too. You need to have some longer vacations over there 24/7. You guys deserve it after this tipsy topsy turvy.
Oh no, don't worry. I'll take my vacation.
Oh, okay.
We'll rack up a few commitments during that time. But this was like a quick getaway down to Scottsdale to watch some spring training. It was great. But ultimately, life resumes back in Lincoln, and I needed to be here so I could watch Nebraska basketball season just spiral out of control even further.
Hey,
It's so fun.
I'll see you both at the game on Sunday. We'll have a good time. Hey, and typically, hopefully you don't take a siesta on Fridays because we love talking to you. So thanks for joining us once again. Mike Schaefer, 24/7.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
See you, Mike. It's good. It's good to get a little Nebraska football talk in there. We'll get a little bit more of Nebraska football talk in our next segment when we talk to the always wise, always this. The guy knows a lot about football, but he knows a lot about people, knows a lot about sports. We'll talk to Matt Verzal coming up next year on Gary and Matt. I'm never going to get that right, aren't I? We welcome in Matt Verzel here on Gary Matt 1620 The Zone. No, Gary, he is currently announcing the Summit League basketball tournament for your Omaha Mavericks as they look to make their first NCAA tournament for the first time. I'm joined by Caleb Henry of Husker Max. We welcome Matt Verzel. Matt, I was in Wrigley last weekend. I'll tell you right now, it was buzzing. How excited are you for opening weekend?
Excited. It's always fun to get the season started and get back into baseball.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing pretty well. They got boat race yesterday against the Kansas City Royals. Hopefully Kyle Tucker can get it going before we head into the regular season. Hey,
Go Birds.
Yeah, Caleb is a Cardinals fan, Matt, so we're just going to have to give him a little bit of leeway here for a second. But
it's always nice to reach out and let people with special needs come on the show.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt.
This was my Make-A-Wish.
John Cena's not doing that anymore. Hey, so Matt, some early indications from winter workouts are saying that there are two guys who are doing a pretty good job early on. One of them is Marquise Watson-Trent. He is the Georgia Southern transfer who was an absolutely incredible performer at a very high level in a lower conference that the Huskers got out of the transfer portal. He's a fifth-year guy. And another guy who's performing very well is freshman from Miami, Cortez Mills. I want to ask you, you have one dude who's played a ton of football, who's been around the block, who needed to play, lower tier, mid-major football because he didn't have those measurables, right? And then you have another guy in Mills who has all the measurables, who has the star rating, who has all the hype coming in from high school. He's performing, very well as well, according to reports in winter workouts. What does that say about the health of the culture in Nebraska football, in the fact that you have two guys from very different backgrounds working at a very high level coming into this program to start winter workouts?
It probably means, that the staff and everybody, that they're pretty spot on and guys they're looking for, drafting high character guys that want to come in and just work. And it's always good to find kids that have kind of been overlooked for something as insignificant as like height and weight.
Yeah.
Those kids are always fun to have around. Say they just have a chip on their shoulder. They just want to prove everybody wrong. So whatever it takes for Nebraska to find leadership in their locker room, that's what we're going for.
Not just Watson, Trent, and Mills or any of the newcomers, but also guys returning. There are so many new staff members, and we've been able to hear from them over the last couple of weeks. How tough or easy is that transition with having so many new position coaches and coordinators, and this time with the winter workouts pre-spring?
So the big thing is with those is your main person is always going to be your strength conditioning guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But as long as that stays the same, that's the person that has the most interaction. So, if Campbell's in there and you have that kind of message always being sent and then followed up by the head coach, so if Rule sticks true to his message and what he says, and then Campbell's on board with what he's doing, those things aren't as difficult as, now they're as difficult as you make them.
Right.
But I don't think it's as difficult as people make it out to be.
I don't know if you watched the Mike Eckler press conference. It was the first time I was in the same room with Coach Eckler, and I was very impressed with the kind of balance he had from his energy and intensity, but also the fact that he is just a very smart football guy. What do you expect in terms of impact from him now taking over that special teams unit?
I think you're going to see it be something that people want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're coming in and you're changing things up at a school, special teams is always the ones that seems to slip through the cracks, and people don't fully comprehend the importance of it.
Yeah.
And if you got a guy with passion, a guy that makes it fun and those kind of things, and then you get some results on it, you get blocked kicks, you get returns for touchdown, you get big plays out of that side of the ball, then more and more people want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So that's something that an energy guy like Eckler can always help out with.
He made a real interesting comment about, number one, speed, just needing to have speed on the football field at all times, but then also talked about how at Tennessee, the guys that were on his units were freshmen or walk-ons, and just guys trying to prove their spot. What do you take away from that? And are you? I got a feeling you're probably a fan of that mentality.
You know, it goes a couple ways.
Yeah.
I bring it up on here as much as I can, but there's a picture of, let's see, it would be the 95 Orange Bowl, so the 94 season. But it's the right side, I believe, of the punt formation is Wistrom, Tomich, and Vedral.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to have people out there that are athletic and are fast and are all those things. But when you get really competitive people on those special teams, they tend to go a lot better. You know, when they understand how big it is and how much they can influence everything in the game, those are always good fits. So if it's a young guy, if it's an old guy, whatever it is, it's as long as it's a football player, it's okay by me.
I know it's not an easy phase, and I think sometimes you're right. The special teams does get ignored, but is it as simple as having somebody who's there taking it seriously and is passionate about it and is getting the buy-in from those talented and competitive guys to want to be part of that phase?
I think everybody takes it seriously when you're coaching or when you're a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the other piece of it is that your individual position coach, you hope they reinforce how important and how necessary, how crucial it is. So they almost as a badge of honor for themselves, if you've made a special team, it means as much to them as it does to you. So that's, you know, those things all factor in as well.
Mason McConaughey, unfortunately, went down with an injury. He'll be out for the rest of the year. And I just kind of want to get your perspective on the fact that this team, Nebraska baseball, came into this season with a ton of expectations, right? Preseason ranked, come out, you start the season 4-6. Now your preseason All-American goes down and is injured. You know, what are kind of the keys, not only just from the on the field perspective, but in the locker room perspective, for these guys to do or accomplish in order to kind of turn this season around despite just an absolutely disastrous result or start?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks for Mason. You know, kid had I went to one of the red-white scrimmages, I guess we'll call it, or whatever they call them.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was in his bag and he was doing really well. And so you feel for the kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate. But in all forms of athletics, at any level, anywhere, there's going to be injury. And you just have to pick up. You know, if it's a young guy, if it's an old guy, if it's somebody that hadn't really been counted on or thought was going to contribute a whole bunch, guess what, bud? Your time is now.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to go out and be competitive. They need to, you know, all of them need to hit the baseball. You got to hit the baseball in timely situations, and you got to have productive outs and all those kind of things, you know, all those baseball cliches. But for whatever reason, that wasn't happening early this far. So hopefully they can get this doubleheader going tomorrow and get on a little hot streak.
Yeah, obviously that moves up all of Horn, Walsh, and Brockett, and maybe you get a little bit more of Drew Christo and everyone else through that bullpen. It's tough to, as I was talking with someone yesterday, and Vers, let me know if you agree with this. It's tough to take that loss of McConaughey at any time. 91 Ks last year. A couple of guys like Chamberlain and Komine had done that where they had 90 plus Ks and came back. But you do this just before the Big Ten season. You're not trying to rebalance your pitching rotation 2 weeks before the Big Ten tournament. You're going into Big Ten play. So it's like Will Bolt and the staff have got some time to figure out where those pitchers go going forward. It's almost like it's advantageous to have that injury early, but rather than late.
I think yes and no. I think toward the end of the year, it's going to be more of a shock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, shit, what do we do? But in this one, sorry about that, I hit the drop button.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. We got it.
But, you know, right now, like, you have to look at it creatively. And if you look at the injury, and I know it's bad to have it happen, but if you say this, like, you move everybody up in the rotation, but you've got a bunch of young arms that need to to kind of help out.
Yeah.
So if you go sit down and say, listen, I need you to be the best you can be for 9 innings. And your Saturday, your Friday, whatever day starter you want, you're going to go 3, you're going to go 3, and then we'll just get it to the back end of the bullpen and let them handle the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of empower those young kids and maybe build up some miles on their arms. So then next year, your pitching is a lot clearer, because in college baseball, you can never have enough pitching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The teams that win it, they have guy after guy after guy after guy. I mean, they're always seem to be flush with pitching. So it's an interesting opportunity for Bolt and crew to build some depth on the pitching staff.
Hey, so they announced yesterday that what is going to be the replacement for the spring game, kind of this all-day Husker athletic bonanza. I want to get your kind of perspective on it, because you do have a different perspective in terms of the fact that you were an athlete and the gear and the equipment and everything like that. Now they're going to have basically a garage sale in the Hawks Championship Center. Did you keep your jerseys? Were you able to bring anything home? How much do you think they have of Husker gear or athletic gear in particular? Is there just any sort of insights you can give on that event? A lot of people are super excited for it.
They always have gear. It's not going to be like, day one, what we're using this year.
Sure.
Uniforms, but in their treasure trove, they're going to have, they've got stuff. They probably have stuff still in storage back from when I was there, which was forever ago.
Yeah.
So Jay Terry and his crew always do a great job. Jay's probably the most excited. He's going to have some room in his closet space down there to bring in some new gear.
Yeah,
but yeah. I think, kind of once you got to your senior year,
yeah,
they weren't really going to stop you if you kept something. So, helmet is always, of course, and jerseys. Everybody's got a collection of jerseys. Some guys liquidated those collections, but yeah.
Are you going to be looking for a number 51 jersey?
No, I only go and watch football. I don't go watch. If they're not going to play, I'm not going to care. So,
okay, fair enough.
I think I don't agree with the decision. Doesn't make any sense to me. So, hope the garage show goes good. Excited to have the women out there that want to compete for the volleyball team go compete.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Matt, really appreciate you coming on every week. We'll see you next Friday, all right, my man?
You got, boys.
All right, talk to you soon. Matt Verzal, always giving good insights in and around the Nebraska football program. I'll tell you this right now. I know it was a very nonchalant drop from Matt, but the fact that he went out and said, no, they're gonna have a lot of things for you to go and buy. It bodes well. I'm excited for it. Like, I understand what Matt said there at the end with the whole, wanting to watch football and wanting to watch them compete.
And he's definitely not alone in that.
And no, he's not. He's not. But you know what? If they were going to tweak the spring game, I'm glad it wasn't a half-assed version of the spring game. I'm glad it wasn't just a 3-hour 7-on-7 football event. I'm glad that they're actually showcasing other sports, showcasing other venues, and doing something fun like, hey, come in and grab the gear. We'll see how much the gear is, right? Because if the gear is like $70, $80, $90, there are going to be some people being like, all right, this ain't worth it. So hopefully it'll be at a more marked up, discounted price. Jury's out. All righty, we got one more segment here before we head into the weekend. I'm going to be talking a little Husker hoops and just previewing some college basketball. Don't go anywhere. You listen to Gary and Matt. You know that music. That means that we're heading into the weekend, the last segment
Open your beer.
of the week. Yeah, crack it up. Why not?
Pack your bowl.
Why not? I am going to lunch after this, so unfortunately, I can't
Shout out
have
lunch.
a beer. I gotta go and drive, so I can't do that. I would love to, though. I'll never forget. I'm pretty sure it was my very first show.
Good luck on the lunch
beer
date.
at 10 a.m. Not a date. Anyway,
So he says.
things happening this weekend. Really good matchups. Missouri plays Kentucky. Marquette plays St. John's. That should be a good one. NHL trade deadline. We'll see where Paul Mary and Marchand go. That could be a pretty big shakeup in the NHL. We have the Nebraska High School Girls State Basketball Tournament now on the TV as Lincoln Christian leads Gothenburg 34-18.
Told you, minus all the points.
As the third, what was I about to say? As third quarter begins. I did actually get a tweet about certain lines.
See?
Apparently, Millard West is a 17.5 point favorite with the over-under at 103.5.
You guys act
And,
surprised. If you've been here long enough, this is par for the course.
Bell West Side game, the over-under is set at 119.5. Thanks to Platt Cat on Twitter.
I figured.
For letting me know what those lines are. So
Doing
I
the Lord's
definitely
work.
can't. Hey, I just saw this pop up on my ESPN feed.
Whoa.
A FBI puts ex-Olympian snowboarder to its most top 10 wanted list. I want to read you this quote. It's about a former Canadian snowboarder, Ryan Wedding, who's 43. He's now top 10 most wanted of the FBI. Wedding went from shredding powder on the slopes at the Olympics to distributing powder cocaine on the streets of U.S. cities and in native Canada. One hell of a statement there.
That's great writing right there. That's what they teach you in journalism school.
From the FBI
Fun
agent
with puns.
in L.A. Hey, so big events this weekend. I just wanted to throw that out there. I just thought that was such a good line from FBI.
It's
LA
phenomenal
County
journalism.
Incredible journalism. Hey, if you want a NFL defensive end in free agency, you're going to be able to actually sign one or trade one, as Trey Hendrickson, who's one of the best in the league, requested a trade yesterday from the Cincinnati Bengals. It looks like everybody but Max Crosby wants to be sacking a different quarterback in a different division across the NFL. You're probably going to see Josh Sweat, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, and Khalil Mack might be on the move. Joey Bosa got cut. Then you got to look at the fact that there are so many defensive linemen who are going to be really good in this year's draft. James Pierce, Shamar Stewart, one of those guys who might go in late day 2, early day 3 is a Husker, Ty Robinson. So, hey, if you need a D lineman, the NFL is the place to go.
This does not apply to me.
No. Well,
this does not apply to me.
Nothing applies to you anymore. You're just numb. You just don't want to talk about it.
No. I'm happy for the other 31 teams. Congratulations on your linemen. I hope you buy plenty of them, and best of luck to you chasing a championship next year.
Yeah, we're gonna take a different approach to how we build this football team.
We're gonna sell glory holes,
and
that's what we're gonna do here. The Dallas Cowboys.
We're just looking for the glory hole that we get to pay the least amount of money to.
Pepsi.
We want to win.
Yeah,
and my son knows best. That was my Jerry Jones.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
I picked up on that.
I think that was pretty good.
Not as good as your Tony Romo, which I don't think you get enough credit for here.
Jim!
You just got to yell Jim.
But he does it. Every time he says it, I'm like, wait, what down is it? Is it third down?
Zone, Jim. They're in zone. They're not going to snap the ball here. They're not going to snap the... Oh, my Patrick Mahomes. Only in
You were getting a
Jim.
little Gruden there.
Yeah, let me tell you what, man. Danny Woodhead, man? You know where Danny Woodhead went to college, man? He's Chadron State University.
That Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes. Look at Andrew Luck. Nobody snaps the ball better than that. God made Andrew Luck to be a football player, a leader, hell of an arm. That's my luck. Jim?
You're doing a good job.
It's great.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
a bunch of controversial voices, controversial things happening. One thing that could end up in controversy is the head coaching search for Nebraska basketball. Look, here's the thing.
Whoa, if you just turned on now, you just probably drove off Dodge. Like, wait, what happened?
There's not a current search.
Listen, there is no. I'm not saying.
No. I know.
Yeah. I did not say that.
We're just.
Tim Kruger said something interesting.
He said lots of things interesting. Like
he's
always.
very great. Mm-hmm. You agreed with him. I disagreed with him. You said Fred Hoiberg isn't on the hot seat. I think Fred Hoiberg it's warming up. And if he loses to Iowa, 7-13 in the Big Ten, he'd be 80-106 overall in 6 years of play.
That's less than 500.
They would be out of the tournament. There are a lot of factors to consider. I'm not saying.
First, what do you mean by hot seat? Do you mean hot seat like this could be his last season in Lincoln, or hot seat to where next year it makes a big difference in the rest of his tenure?
At this point, no matter how you slice it, there is some pressure on him heading into next season, especially considering the fact that they're going to lose a lot of guys.
Well, yeah, you gotta pick up like 7 guys in the portal,
at least 7 dudes, and so there is
preferably
going to
ones
be,
that can score.
And this season, you were bringing back more this year than you are going to be bringing back next year, and they failed in the portal. They did not
miss, like
all misses,
half an okay,
and you can even look back to last year's portal and be like, well, they missed on Aaron Eulis too. I mean, because he has been a non-factor sans that one Maryland game where he looked really, really good. But I mean, that's just, kind of the antithesis of what this team's been. You can get the worst game of the year out of any of them on any given night. You can get the best game out of them in any given night. Once again, I am not standing on the table and saying to fire Fred Hoiberg, because I do agree with the idea that he is a good coach and that there have been plenty of positive things that he's done. I just want to get it out there right now. I just blatantly disagree with the fact that his seat isn't somewhat hot after you go 7-13 in the Big Ten Conference in your 6th year of being the head coach of Nebraska basketball. Okay. Now, this conversation has less so to do with Fred and him being a head coach as it does with what is the athletic department's investment. And I know that is a whole other bag of worms that you can open. But this game on Sunday against Iowa is going to be really pivotal in trying to figure out where is this program and whether or not there should be some conversations of, can he continue to be the guy?
He can lose on Sunday, which would mean missing the Big Ten tournament. And the last time Nebraska didn't play in a conference tournament was 1976, by the way. The year before the Big Eight started playing conference tournaments.
They used to have the holiday
in
tournament.
76, 77. So you're looking at 50 years of difference of playing. And because Nebraska was one of the teams that actually got to play in 2020, not every team has played 50 years worth of a conference tournament.
Yeah.
So it was good to be playing on the first night.
Sure.
At least got a game in. He can lose Sunday, miss the conference tournament, lose the first round of the Crown or NIT, and he's not getting fired. 0% chance that Fred Hoiberg is out this year. I will absolutely grant anyone that Hoiberg needs to have a good year next year, needs to have hits in the portal. But for this year, I had said with 11 games left after Nebraska was on, or I can't remember if it was 11 games left, but they were on that 6-game losing streak. Could lose the rest of them. And Hoiberg wasn't going to be let go this offseason. Right now, with at least one game left, Hoiberg has the most wins of any Nebraska men's basketball coach for years 4 through 6.
I don't care about that, because Nebraska basketball historically, this is not a
historically
great.
Do you want him to compare it to Duke?
I'm not
Kansas?
comparing it to Duke.
What are we comparing it to then?
Shout out Big 8.
You don't have to compare it to anything. There's nothing to compare it to.
Then what do you need to look at if there's nothing to compare it to?
His conference, he's 80-106 if they lose on Sunday. He'd be 37-80 in Big Ten conference play. He had one year last year where they made the NCAA tournament and he won the Coach of the Year. And you know what? All the credit to him. It worked. He did a phenomenal job coaching last year. He did a phenomenal job of recruiting guys and developing guys. But you have to look at the long-term picture. And the long-term picture is that Fred Hoiberg's model of sustained success for Nebraska basketball is recruiting through the portal, getting older guys through the portal, not only just getting mercenaries, but also trying to develop younger Power 5 guys through the portal. 1 year after having an incredible amount of success, only 1 year later, they end up being almost out of the tournament, not qualifying for the Big Ten conference title or Big Ten conference tournament. And on top of that, they are very, very fortunate that this year is one of the weakest bubbles of all time. The only reason they are still in the combo, and Tim Kruger said it at 8 o'clock, was because this is historically one of the worst bubbles ever. And so he's fortunate in that regard. It's just, I know what you're saying. He's a good coach. He's a really good guy. He stands in front of the press conference. He cares a ton. He wants to win. He can connect with people. But if we're just looking at it, I don't need comparisons. I just need to look at the facts. And the facts are that he's 80-105. He's got a poor conference record. He hasn't proven this year that this model of using the transfer portal can have a sustained amount of success. And yeah, when you're in your 6th year and you go 7-13 and you miss a conference tournament, you're damn right there should be conversations of whether or not you should have your job next season. I'm absolutely going to stand on that hill and say he should be on the hot seat. And maybe even we'll see what the rest of the season holds. I'm not holding out on being like, oh, we'll see. I mean, he for sure, with where he is, for how long he's been here, be on the hot seat if they end up missing the conference tournament. And I'll say this too. If this was a year 3 thing, maybe I'd definitely be more lenient. We're in year 6. We're in year 6.
It's year 3 since it's year 3 since the restructuring.
It doesn't matter.
Of the staff. Matt Abdel-Massey's not there. It's year 3 of what you've worked with.
It's year 6. He's in his 6th year. And things got dicey in year 4. And Emmanuel Bandamel and Sam Griesel and how that team played saved him. Okay. So, I mean, that was pivotal.
And Bandamel missed a bunch of time in what was year 4.
And we don't have to.
And Juwan Gary was out a bunch.
Absolutely. So
that team would have gone to the NCAA tournament if they stayed healthy.
I don't know about
and then
that.
they go to the tournament last year.
With that. I disagree with that. But
they're still not 100% out of it this year.
Look, I'm glad they aren't, and they're very fortunate, and their circumstances bode very well for them. But we'll see what happens. Sunday's going to be a pivotal game. You'll be there. I'll be there. Our friend Mike. Everybody will be there. It's a massive, massive day in Lincoln. 11.
I won't, but you make me want to go.
Tip on Sunday.
What's your place you go to? McKinney's?
McKinney's, baby. Yeah. McKinney's.
There you go.
Live, laugh, and punt. Have a great weekend. From me, from Gary, from Jimmy, from Caleb Henry. Thank you so much for filling in, buddy. Always great to have you here.
Love it.
I'm sure we'll be having these conversations on Monday. Crossover is coming up next.